Welcome to the 38th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast. Today we're going over the fall 2017 season's 11th and 12th week of shows. Yes, this is the end of 2017 for anime. What a crazy year it's been. Just as a reminder, we also always include timestamps in the description of the YouTube video and the podcast feed, so if you're only caught up with one or two of like the 10 shows we're covering, since we literally spoil everything, especially now since the season has ended, you can just tune into those like couple of episodes if you want. My name is BCom, and I can't aim in Fortnite, so I just fault the game for all of my own shortcomings. And also with me is Leo.
Yeah, I think you do.
No, that game just sucks.
Dude, you're like...
It sucks. It's terrible on Xbox. That game is meant to be played on PC.
No, it's totally fine on Xbox, dude.
It's really not, though, because you can't aim, and the only thing that matters in games like Fortnite and PUBG is how well you can aim when it comes down to like really frantic encounters. And when you can't aim precisely on Xbox in those games, you just die for no reason, or you don't do as well as you should. All right,
I'm going to send you a clip of me wrecking two people back to back. Yeah,
I mean, that's fine. Like, I'm sure you can eventually. I want to know how many headshots you got in that clip.
One on each of them. Saka. It's a
what
great
gun
clip.
Were you using? Like a spray and pray gun? What gun were you using?
A tactical shotgun? No.
Yes, a tactical shotgun. A gun with spread. Exactly. The shotgun is the only gun that's worth anything in that game because you can actually not aim precisely with it and still get hits.
Well, the Scar is the best gun in the game. So
yeah, on the PC, I'm sure it is.
It's not my fault you can't aim, dude.
Nobody can aim.
We're all
nobody can aim in Fortnite or PUBG on Xbox. It's impossible.
All right, moving on. I got a good cat story because Fortnite's awesome.
Cats are also not a precise game.
They're unpredictable.
Yeah.
So I'm playing this awesome game called Fortnite with some of my buddies yesterday, and both my cats start hissing at each other like bushy tails arched back. I'm like, okay. So I lock one in a room. Give them about 15 minutes to cool off. Let her out. There's still a lot of tension. I'm like, okay, whatever. I get up, I go in the kitchen. I just assumed Chio was just hiding back by the door away from Akane, back by the basement door. Mm-hmm. And then later on, I got up a second time and went in there, and she's just staring at this door. So I'm like, what the heck? And then suddenly it kind of clicks. There was one other time that Akane acted like this, and this was when I took Chio to the vet and brought her back, and she probably smelled like other cats. So I'm like, oh, crap. So I go down in the basement, which is just big enough to hold a hot water heater and a furnace. And I get down there and I kind of stand there for a second, and then something meows at me. So like any sane human being, I meow back, and out pops this cute cat. I'm just like, what are you doing down here? And she comes straight to me. She's like aggressively friendly. Like, you know how labs can be? Mm-hmm. This cat was like that. She was just like, touch me, pet me, pet me. So I brought her upstairs. You stinking cats. They're still fighting. Anyways, I don't know if the mic picked it up, but where was I in my story?
You took her upstairs.
Okay, so I took her upstairs. It's been super cold lately. It was like in the single digits, so we kept her in the back room all night and then left her in the house during the day when I went to work. So when I came home, I set her back outside. She, like I said, she's super friendly. She's clearly been around humans. She lives somewhere. So I set her outside. She meows at the back door for about a whole minute, and then she wanders off. So we'll wait and see if she shows back up in the crawl space again.
Yeah. How close is your place to like other people? Like
it's a neighborhood.
So she definitely could have just wandered off from another house, I guess. Yeah,
definitely. And there are some stray cats I see wandering around. I've just never seen her before.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting yesterday.
You almost gained a new cat. Almost.
And Akane needs to get over it. She's still hissing at the other one.
Well, do you think your cats will stop fighting long enough for us to talk about anime?
Probably not, but we can try.
Well, let's try. So on Sundays, the final 2 episodes of Anime-Gataris, starting with episode 11, which is called Our Friend Koki's Second Betrayal, because he's always betrayed them once. Just as a disclaimer, these two synopses for these episodes are going to be fucking long because but they're worth the length.
And totally batshit crazy.
Yeah, there's just a lot to get into here because starting with episode 11, this series went nuts. So the episode apparently starts off with Manoa taking some really serious drugs, which must have happened off screen because like when she goes downstairs for breakfast, she starts interacting with the special effects in the scenes that she's a part of as if they're real. So her parents are like being lovey-dovey and like there's like special effects hearts floating around them. And one of the hearts like floats into Manoa's palm and she like grabs it and like squeezes it. And like her sister is in a hurry to get to school and she has some like action bubbles that are around her and they bump into Manoa's cheek. So just before her sister leaves for school, her face changes into this older art style, apparently reminiscent of the work of Tsukasa Kotobuki. And it's this weird like 90s art style. And she turns to ask her parents if they saw this weird change in her sister's face. And their faces are both changed as well. So she's really freaking out now. And so these weird occurrences only continue at school where she almost walks into an uncompleted black edge of a frame of the show. Like she's walking off the left side of the frame. And like she keeps walking and she's like, there's nothing here. She's about to walk into a void because it hasn't been drawn by the animators. So they're breaking the fourth wall, basically. And she also appears to be aware of the passage of time in our reality rather than in the reality of the show. Because she's weirded out when they're showing like clips of her class like throughout her day, like short clips. Like how they would in any slice of life anime in a school. Except when she gets to the end of the class, she's like, wait, that took like 30 seconds. What? The whole day just went by in 30 seconds. What the hell's going on? So Arisu calls for Sebastian, and he's also changed. He looks like a gorgeous long-haired maid now.
Oh,
and
Bishojo.
She's like, Arisu, don't you notice that something's off with him? And she's like, well, yes, he usually serves Earl Grey tea at this time, and he served Hojicha tea this time. So she's not really up on it, but the anime club has a meeting because, you know, Manoa's freaking out. And so they wonder if the series composition of their show has changed, like the person who writes the series composition. So Erica takes a remote control out and literally rewinds the show, like the show, Anime-Gataris, to the beginning so they can watch the OP again. And so when it gets to the series composition credit on the OP, she pauses and she's like, no, it's the same guy writing the show. So dude, things are completely off the rails.
Yeah, but at this point, I think this is when I started messaging you, and I was just like, just be ready for episode 11. It goes some places, dude.
It really does. And they're very aware that they're in an anime now, and Manoa is told to calm down because if they jump the shark too much, they'll get canceled, even though it's episode 11. And then they're like, well, is this too much of a genre twist? Maybe we should just be trying to please the fans of the show. And like they keep talking, and then Neko's like, what if I just start exploding? So he explodes in like a comedic way, and they all start laughing, and then he like rewinds and he explodes again in like a more dramatic way. And then they're like, but what about realism? He explodes in a realistic way, and where he literally dies. It's just like, what? And so there's a mid-card break, which is made Sebastian. And then we come back and see that Neko is alive but has lots of bandages. And then they finally get slightly back to the reality of the show, where Manoa asks Koki about that picture she saw at the end of the last episode in the president's office that had somebody that looked exactly like him from like 20 years ago. So yeah, she asks him, like, do you have an older brother or something? And he says he doesn't and just avoids the question, basically. Manoa continues to have these weird visions of her family that looking like Speed Racer versions of themselves in black and white or something. And the next day at school, she physically runs into subtitles on the screen that say the next day. She like bumps into them. And then a giant Gundam appears from beneath the school, and one of the soccer players attacks it with a fiery Gurren drive kick. Shit is just going nuts. Enough seems to be enough for Manoa, who finally says, it's not like we're in an anime. And then Arisu like pulls her aside and is just like appalled at her for rejecting anime. And so Minoa runs off upset, and as she's running, it's suddenly sunset, and she's like crying, and she yells out, "Why is it suddenly sunset?" It's hilarious. So she breaks down in her sister's arms, and her sister tells her to hold on because they're almost at the end of the show. And the next day, Minoa casually pushes the "next day" subtitle out of the way as she enters the school grounds. And everyone's staring at her, giving her the cold shoulder because, like, they know she hates anime. And so she tries to confide in Koki, and they come to the conclusion that this must all be Neko-senpai's fault. Because things have gotten weirder ever since everyone started to be able to, like, hear him talking. So Minoa goes to look in the closet where she first found Neko, but when she opens the door, Koki like starts laughing maniacally, and then there's a bright flash and the whole closet door is replaced by a brick wall. And they go back outside, and the school grounds have turned into like an anime hellscape of like Yu-Gi-Oh! And like Bakuan and other references. And Koki shows Minoa her own reflection in this book, in like a DVD case of Love Live, I think. And her face has turned into a Tsukasa Kotobuki design now. And Neko-senpai calls out Koki, asking who the hell he works for, and realizes he's from the anime side of reality. So Koki is like an anime character that has crossed over into the reality of their real anime world. And then a man walks out of some smoke who looks like Hideaki Anno, who Koki apparently works for, and he's wearing the red beret that Minoa found in the much earlier episode from Neko-senpai's closet. And Koki hands Minoa like a Geordie LaForge visor from Star Trek and tells her to put it on to see true reality. And when she does, she sees that the other characters are laughing at her, and they're all in their like key animation form with like white and black and like blue and red like lines for highlighting. And that's when they cut to the ED.
Do you even know what you just said?
Pretty much. Oh, also there's one gag, like Yui, because Yui's the fan service character. She makes this gag at the end of, like, I think it's like right after the OP or just before the OP starts, where she says like Yui-chin, because there's like these three boys at the school who are trying to flip up her skirt. And that was apparently a reference to the anime Maiching Machiko Sensei, which was like basically an anime all about little boys trying to look up their teacher's skirt. And she would always say Maiching. And so the Yui-chin thing was a reference to that.
How'd you even find that out?
I looked up like Yui-chin, and then like I saw something about it, and then I went up on, I think it was on Reddit that I found that like somebody noticed that reference, and I was like, oh, that makes sense, because I knew of the existence of that anime, like because it's dumb as a premise. I've never seen it, but yeah. Okay, so that was episode 11. Episode 12, somehow they have to finish this series. Wait, what'd you say?
I said, hold it together, BCom, you're almost done.
Yeah. So, the insanity continues in the final episode. So, Koki is, like, narrating everything that's happening, and he's rejecting, like, Minoa's request to, like, stop the madness, basically. And so the guy wearing the red beret was the director of the anime, I think, and the narrator kills him for trying to take credit for it. I guess, I don't know. It's confusing. Koki is upset because he had an agreement with the director to change his name from Aurora, and his name has stayed the same. Like, people still call him Aurora Senpai or whatever, and he hates that. Also, the other club members are casually flying by on a green dragon while buildings appear upside down in the distance, Inception style. That's all going on in the background. Anime just continues to spread everywhere, and literally everything is becoming anime. And so this is their explanation for why an older animated version of Koki appeared in that principal's yearbook picture or whatever. He was like an anime character then, but he was like a slightly different art style because anime has evolved since then. Also, apparently the Anime Club Room was the site of the very first anime studio in this world. And so as long as the wall is bricked over, the world would continue to become more and more anime. So Minoa returns home, and her parents are talking about the anime they're most looking forward to, which include anime airing in this like winter 2018 season also. But her mom is especially looking forward to A Sister's All You Need, literally the show that aired last season. So she's the worst mom confirmed. Like, I don't think I have to say anything else about that. in her room, Manoa starts to see like visions of mushrooms. Like she usually has like these mushroom toys in her room, but they're like alive now. And her friend's telling her to let anime just eat her and become one with anime. And she finally decides to reject becoming anime after all. And because of this, she starts fading through the world because she's rejected the anime world that she lives in. And so she like fades through the front door, and Neko senpai just tells her, yeah, the world's rejecting you. And so he tells her, like, you have to go get that beret because it's the source of all the power in this world. And it'll let us change things back if they bring it to the door in the club room. But before they can get to it, there's like a mid-episode eye catch, and it's like chasing them, or it's like it's like the eye catch is like coming towards the screen, and it's gonna like hit them, and it does hit them. It like hits Manoa and Koki, and they like fall through it to the other side. Oh, sorry, it hits Manoa and Neko, sorry. Koki has the beret, and he's trying to erase the world with it. And Manoa starts seeing images of her past, and Neko has to snap her out of it, yelling, "You're being consumed by a recap episode!" And so Neko tells her she has friends from inside the anime world, and then like some of the catharsis characters from her anime she remembers come to like start helping her. So she hops into like this giant Gundam and starts attacking. But because she went against the Red Beret, she gets erased. So when she's erased, she sees Koki, who refers to her as Mikene-chan, which Manoa doesn't respond to. And Neko senpai is like, we're back to the planning phase. And so we see this brief character sheet from the initial planning stages of Anime-Gataris, where the three main girls had different names than they do now. So I guess her planning stage name was not Manoa, it was Mikene. That's why he's calling her Mikene. Koki gives Manoa the Red Beret because he can't change anything. He wants to change his name so badly. And she opens the path to the door and heads towards it. But on her way, she's confronted by these faded visions of her friends, and she tells them that she loves anime and she can't stay in this world because her friends are all going to disappear, and she hates this piece of shit anime, she says.
Oh boy.
Everyone fades away except for Koki, or Aurora senpai, who Manoa tells that she admires because he always helped her find her way. And Manoa runs through the door and finds that the secret room still has a brick wall in front of the door. So she falls to her knees as the world fades out from under her, but she's caught by Arisu, who lifts her up. Her and the anime club friends are sitting on the one last remaining patch of floor, floating in the middle of their erased anime world. And they're like, well, we still have a lot of talking about anime to do. And at that point, Robo Arisu shows up, and they try to punch through the brick wall, but it's too weak. And the robot just keeps saying, not enough money, as it powers down. And then Manoa tells Arisu not to try to solve everything with money, and instead, like, use her passion. And so, like, the passion of Manoa, like, punches through, like, the robot's rocket punch and through the wall. And so Aurora and Neko say they'll take the beret back to the anime side now. And Koki says he doesn't want to become shit anime, so that's why he's doing it. That's why he's leaving. So their world is finally returned to what seems like normal, except it's totally not. We return to the beginning of the time frame of Anime-Gataris, where Manoa wants to join the anime club, except this time she seems to know a lot about anime, and the school council president supports the club instead of like trying to shut it down. And the club president is this purple-haired girl with a cat ear headband who showed up in the planning stage frame from earlier, and now she's part of the show. And when they look in the closet, they find a huge stash of anime, and they get all excited. And then the last shot of the show is Yui drinking some water from a fountain and then just winking at the camera before the ED plays.
They just had to get one last one in there, didn't they?
And then in the ED, we see that Kai has drawn Koki. He's like an idol dancing character in this version of the timeline. And they give him the same name, Aurora, which must really piss him off. And then the after credit shot is just all of the girls from the show and Neko senpai posing in Santa outfits, like fan service style. And Neko asking, are we really doing this after the ending?
It was good.
Oh my God.
You need a drink of water there, buddy?
Kind of, man. That was ridiculous. Like, those 2 episodes were so far beyond where I thought this show would go. I kind of really loved it. Like, I was just laughing my ass off the whole time. It was so ridiculous. And I just love the idea that their anime is coming to an end and they realize it, and it's like getting erased around them. And like the whole fabric of their existence is like no longer going to exist, because we're not going to get more Anime-Gataris after this. So these characters are going to be gone forever, basically.
Yeah, I really loved episode 11 because it just out of nowhere it starts doing this totally different thing, and I'm sitting here and like my hands are on the side of my face. I'm like, what show am I even watching anymore? And like I loved the craziness of it. I thought it's just amazing.
Yeah, I just loved how far it went into the meta. It was good.
So we've spent probably 15 minutes on this show.
Yeah, it was worth it though. Man, what a ridiculous ending. At least it went for it. Like, I love when shows go for it and try to do something crazy.
Cool. Ready to do the conclusion of Juuni Taisen?
Yeah. Okay, fine. So on Tuesdays, we got Juuni Taisen, last 2 episodes, starting with episode 11, To Treat a Man to Beef from His Own Cow. So Ox is standing over Tiger's dead body, and he's thinking that she reminds him of the girl that he met on that battlefield long ago, but she couldn't be the same person, right? Because she's a peerless warrior now, and she was just a little girl then. But so he has this sentimental moment, and he braces himself for another battle.
Real quick. I didn't understand why Rabbit was not able to bring Tiger back to life.
Because he didn't kill her. He has to physically kill the people who he can necromance back to life. Okay,
I missed that rule.
Yeah, I think I don't know if that rule was presented earlier in the show, but they definitely that's their idea in this episode at least.
Okay, so he brought back Monkey, who he killed. He brought back Boar, who he killed.
Yeah.
He brought back dragon. Both the brothers, who he killed both. Yeah, I think you're right. Okay.
Basically it. Yeah, the birds and stuff, yeah. So Ox goes into this long inner monologue where he tries to parse Rabbit's insane actions for some type of logic. And he believes that every other fighter besides himself has been able to exploit the Juuni Taisen in some way. But then he considers that perhaps teaming up with Tiger was his advantage. Like, because he feels like everybody else had an unfair advantage besides me, but maybe just the fact that Tiger was in this tournament was an advantage for him. So Rabbit's strike against Tiger was actually a precise blow at the jewel inside of her, in order to take her out of the running. But if Rabbit is dead, how could he enjoy the one wish you get when you win the tournament? So Ox is trying to figure out, like, what is Rabbit's end game? So
he wants everybody to be his friends.
Yeah. Friends, quote unquote. As Ox makes plans to burn Rabbit's corpse to ash, Rabbit shows up with a pieced together corpse of various different body parts. And Rabbit fights like the undead monster that he is, but Ox is able to like fend him off with some flash jumps. Until this flash of like movement jumps out of inside of Rabbit's body. So it was zombie Monkey who was literally like inside of body parts that Rabbit had like constructed together to hide that he had Monkey inside of him. So Monkey pins Ox to the ground, and she's so strong, right? So he can't move. Like he's basically stuck there. So Monkey doesn't kill him though, because Rabbit wants to kill Ox so he can make him the servant. And the thing is, Rabbit is like reconstructing his body right now, so he can't do anything. So they're at like basically a stalemate. Like Ox is pinned down by Monkey. Rabbit is like trying to rebuild the rest of his body, so nothing can happen. And so at this point, Rat shows up out of nowhere, and he has with him the explosive that Sheep had talked about earlier in the show. And so like Ox is trying to figure out like, he's thinking about like Rat's plan, and they have like a brief heart-to-heart where Rat tells him like, the only reason I was able to retrieve this explosive was because like Tiger was able to kill Sheep earlier, and it just made it possible for me. And he asks Ox if he has any last words, and Ox is like, no, just do it. Do what's right for you. Because Ox is thinking about Rat, and he's like, oh, this is like the perfect timing. He must have just planned this perfectly all the way from the beginning, because this is his only shot to take everybody out. And he's like, oh, he rode me to victory, just like the Zodiac tale. But he's kind of okay with it, because he just thinks it's brilliant, and he doesn't want to become Rabbit's slave, essentially. And he thinks, like, maybe I've met Rat somewhere before. And just as he does, Rat walks away, and the bomb goes off, wiping out everything. So just like that, Rat is declared the winner of the Juuni Taisen.
You predicted it.
Yeah, I mean, I predicted it before I even thought about, like, the Zodiac story, just because of the type of character it is. And I was like, Nisio Isin loves characters that don't do anything and talk a lot. Like, he's definitely going to win. So he goes to meet with the chairman, Deodecapole, and he wants to hold a post-match interview with him. And Rat refuses to, like, answer any questions. But so it turns out what Rat's power is he, like, can, like, consider 100 like different paths forward into the future, and he can basically see what will happen in each of those paths.
Yeah, basically foresight.
Yeah, foresight. And so when he pictures, like, not answering the questions for the chairman, every time he tries to leave the room, he dies. Or if he tries to, like, kill the chairman, he dies. Or he just can't see a way out of this room without answering some of these interview questions, basically. Or at least, actually, no, he does see a way out, but like 40 out of the 40 out of the 100 times he was dead. So he was like, it's not worth taking that risk if I only have a 60% chance of survival. So he decides to continue playing along with the chairman, and tells him that he was able to win the tournament because of his power, which is called the 100 Paths of Nezumi-san. And luckily, there was one path out of 99 that allowed him to survive. And he goes on to explain that the only reason he was able to win was because of Monkey, the pacifist, who made a request of him in the sewers. And she told him that if she died and was controlled by Rabbit, she wanted Rat to kill her. And she also told him that Sheep's explosives would be effective against the corpses. So only with that information and that plan was he able to see, like, a path for him to win. And every other path, he experienced all of that path, but he died at some point.
Yeah, like he still experiences those deaths. So that's exactly kind of crazy.
And because of that, in the next episode, he's going to be able to tell us a lot more about what the other characters were thinking in different timelines. So no matter what possibilities he thought of, he could never figure out, like, what Monkey's plan was for peace. And he thinks it just might have been a bluff, because he couldn't see a way to get peacefully out of that situation. And so Deodecapole believes her plan may have been to negotiate with the organizers of the tournament, since she's, like, an expert negotiator. And he feels that, like, these different organizers are, like, literally betting countries on this tournament, like the ownership of countries, I guess. So one last thing Rat lets slip is that there was one timeline in which he and Rabbit, like, hit it off as friends. And for some reason, he really regrets saying that, but he can't think of a timeline in which he can get out of explaining it. So he lets it go. But then after that, Deodecapole, like, lets him go. He's allowed to leave, and he's told, like, if you can think of one wish, just let me know what it is, and get back to me, basically. And so that's where that episode ends.
Yep. I don't have any thoughts on it. You were just right. You called it, so.
Yeah, the next one is more interesting. The next episode.
Yep. Episode 12, the one wish that must be granted, and the 99 that can be done without. Yeah. So, your comment, they had to turn this into a fucking high school anime in the last episode.
Yeah, I was like, they had to turn it into a fucking high school. Like, I saw that, like, fucking scene of, like, a high school, and I was like, are you kidding me, Juuni Taisen?
So, Sheep goes to school and thinks about what he should use his wish for. It's mostly him internally debating some ideas, and he uses his powers to see what happens. Some of them are silly, like flipping up a girl's skirt for no reason. He has some more serious debates and potentially bringing Monkey back to life. Some of this time is used as flashbacks to the wishes of the other contestants. Chicken wanted confidence in herself. Sheep wanted his youthful health back. Horse was so intent that he would lose, didn't even have a wish. Boars is the best. Boar wanted her own harem of 3.5 billion men to worship her.
That is a harem, all right. Oh my god.
Jesus. Dog was most likely going to do something that would have benefited his daughter. He didn't have an exact wish, but it was going to do something to help her. So think about that. He left his daughter alone.
Yeah.
Because he's dead. Snake and Dragon obviously was going to wish for money. Rabbit's wish was to be friends with everybody in the world.
But I think his meaning of friends is killing everybody and then like controlling them.
Tiger did get her wish, which was to have a battle with Ox. So
good for her.
Yeah. But he even thinks about upgrading his ability from 100 paths to 1,000 paths. But he still experiences everything like the deaths during Juuni Taisen. So he kind of throws it out the window. He's like, that would drive me crazy. In middle school, he fell in love with a girl and tried 100 ways to ask her out, but none never worked. Towards the end of the show, just info dumps the rest of the wishes. And I don't think anybody just wants me to sit here and list them.
Yeah, that scene went on for like way too long. It literally like listed out like all 98 other wishes that were on his
nor
list.
Nor do I want to just sit here and make a list.
A couple of them were funny, like if you pause, but like it was nothing noteworthy enough.
In the end, he decides that his one wish is that he wants to forget because his own power is driving him crazy, trying to figure out what to wish for. That's how it ends. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, so like Deodecapul, like, is the one who gave him the idea, like, you know, you could wish for like 1,000 or like 100 more wishes or something. And I think Deodecapul understood Rat in that this is the type of person that giving them wishes is just going to drive them more crazy because he can't think of like all of the other outcomes, like, and he just like can't stop himself from thinking about like what would be the best outcome or what would be a different outcome or what would be something that I could do most efficiently. So literally the only thing he can do is just wish to forget about all of it. It's just the only way he can go on living, essentially. So I don't know. What a weird way to end this show.
Yeah, that was a big waste of his time is all I got to say.
Yeah, pretty much. Like maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it is pretty dumb waste of his time.
Yeah.
It was kind of a dumb waste of our time.
Yeah, because you know what? In the end, just a bunch of people died. That's all that happened.
Yeah, and like some of the fights were pretty good, but like not great.
Yeah, and like nothing came about it. Just some people gained some other countries. That's all we know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe if that would have had more of an impact, it would have been a better ending, but nah. As is, no.
I also wish I had known what like Monkey's actual plan for peace was. Maybe Deodecapul was right that she just wanted to negotiate. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's what she was going to do.
Probably wouldn't have worked either, but I don't know. Maybe it could have. She's a pretty good negotiator, so.
Yep.
Anyway, like that was okay anime. I mean, I don't know. We'll get into it later.
Yeah, we still have to give our scores, so there's more we can be said.
All right, so let's move on to Thursdays. And just because the last two episodes...
Be done with this show.
I'm so excited for where this could potentially go. I hope Leo hasn't read my comments on episode 12 yet. So, episode 11, Roundabout. So, Aina tells Ada that he doesn't need to respond to her love confession right now. But instead, he can wait until he passes his exam for Suizan University, which she tells him, like, be sure to pass it, because she wants him to do well, even if she doesn't want him to go out with Mio in the end. So Haruto tells Eita about Hazuki's request for him to wait until they both settled down before going out. And Eita reminds Haruto, don't lose contact with her like you did with me, basically, because it's easy to stop messaging someone after you've been away for a while. And, you know, Haruto's like, don't worry, I won't lose touch. And Eita confirms that he's going to tell Mio everything that he needs to tell her if he passes his entrance exam. So when asked how things are on her, this is gonna be a trial.
You're making me laugh.
When asked how things are on her end romantically, Mio tells Hazuki that it's not a big deal. Like, she doesn't even think the Ada thing is a big deal still at this point. She's just like playing it down. By the time they part, Hazuki has finally put it together that Mio is into Ada, at least, though, so she's on to her. Aina and her clubmates are pouring through like these 10,000 photos to decide which one they want to enter in the photo contest. Though, of course, we would assume that Aina is going to enter the one of Eita pitching that she took. There's a humorous scene where Mio's older sister drives Ada home since she saw him at the convenience store, and she asks him about the entrance exam and finds out that he's been accepted to Joe. And he asks if Mio's mentioned anything, but Eita tells her... Oh, so sorry, she asks if Mio mentioned anything to him, but Eita tells her, like, Mio just gets nasty whenever he brings up the topic of entrance exams because he got a recommendation, she didn't. And her sister goes, she makes this face, doesn't she? And she makes this, like, really pouty, like, mean face that looks exactly like Mio. Is pretty spot on. Mm-hmm. And when the sis gets back home, she teases Mio about seeing Eita, and Mio makes sure that she didn't say anything unnecessary about her like plans for the entrance exam. And of course, her sister didn't spill the beans, blah, blah, blah. But Mio says to herself, you know, I'm going to tell Eita everything after I've passed my entrance exam test. So there's a weird scene where Eita gets a call from his friend from Fujioka, who he makes plans to hang out with, but then instantly decides to ditch him like 2 seconds later when he gets a text message from like his other friends about how they should have a snowball fight after the exams are over. That just seemed like a really weird sequence where Eita gets this call from his friend to hang out after entrance exams and then instantly decides to ditch him. Like, it was weird.
Yeah.
While Eita and Mio are taking their entrance exams, Haruto and Hazuki are at school. And Haruto accidentally lets it slip that he's worried about Ada. And Hazuki's like, what are you worried about him for? And he's like, oh, shit. I was supposed to keep my mouth shut. But he's actually taking an entrance exam to get into the same school as Mio. So now they both know what's going on. But Hazuki tells Haruto that Mio changed her first choice of school. So they're taking entrance exams unnecessarily, at least. Or at least one of them is. So... these entrance exam scenes were pretty cool, but they gave me like traumatic flashbacks of taking the SATs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like really quiet except for the sound of pencils, and there's like random coughs here and there, and it's just like, oh, I remember standardized tests.
I didn't find them traumatic for me, but I hated school in general. So
yeah, then everything's traumatic.
Yeah.
So when Mio, in the middle of the test, Ada starts thinking about Mio, though. He's getting kind of distracted. And they show her sort of thinking as well while she's taking the test. And I think he and she basically think of everything they've ever said to each other in the show, which takes about 60 seconds because they've really barely spoken to each other over the course of this whole time. Like, their entire relationship is kind of built on this one flashback where he lifted a box for her in middle school. And then there's the scene at the shrine in this show. And then they had like one scene on the bus. And between that, they really haven't talked to each other much.
Man, that's all it takes to get a girl to like you. I should have my own harem by now.
Yeah, really. Like 3.5 billion girls, probably. Just like Boar.
Yeah, I mean, that cute girl at the rock climbing gym should like me now because I pointed out the one piece she needs to put her foot on.
Oh, man. Give it 15 years. You'll be married. Just don't say anything else to her, but just maintain contact. Also, in this episode, there was some kind of funny inconsistency with the quality of the animation. Like, there's Mio and Eita are like writing on their test, and there's some like English sections of this exam. So when they're writing English letters, the letters just sort of like appear magically on the page. They're separate from the pencil making contact. But when they sign their names to the exam, there's this super hyper quality, like Makoto Shinkai-esque version of them writing their like the characters for their names. And I was like, okay, that's weird. They put so much detail in those signatures, but no detail at all into like writing their English parts. And I was wondering if it's like the animation staff aren't familiar with how to like form English letters as much as Japanese letters. I don't know. Or they just didn't have time. I'm not sure, but
yeah, possibly.
We see a few scenes of the characters like after the exams being just like enormously relieved that they're over and like deciding what they want to do and hang out and relax. And then the results scene plays out for 3 characters at once. So Aina is getting the results of her photo that she submitted for the competition, and she smiles. We just see that she's really happy. And then Mio gets a letter of acceptance from Joei. So she got into Joei University, which is pretty crazy because it's a really hard test. And then Eita goes to Suizan in person to
studied every minute she could.
That's true. And she is like the valedictorian, we find out in the next episode. She's pretty smart.
Yeah.
So Ada goes to Suizan like in person to see if he's listed on like the board of all the test takers who got accepted. And we just see him look at the results, and he has like a slight smile that forms on his face. And that's the end of the episode. So what did you do during this episode, Leo?
I mostly just played with my Aqua and Darkness Nandroids. Just while watching this whole episode, I was kind of setting them up in a cool little thing.
Yeah.
I sent you a picture. It's pretty nice. Yeah, this show's freaking boring, dude. I can't take it.
So everything is set up now for the final episode. I would like to say
I will be getting Megumin. Obviously, she's just always freaking sold out. So,
well, for good reason. She explodes. So she's defective.
Explosion.
So episode 12, which is called Get, Set, Go. I'm going to attempt to stay composed during this review, but it's going to be difficult. This may be, in my opinion, the worst ending to an anime romance that I've ever seen. That is what I'm going to say at the start of this review. Yeah. I really hated this episode. So
there's one good thing that happened in this episode.
Okay, we'll get to that. Yeah.
When we get
You'll have to tell me what it is. But
yeah.
In the first scene, we see that Eita's smile looking at the exam results was not one of like happiness necessarily, because he did not get accepted to Suizan. Even though it's an easier school to get into than Joey, I guess he was just too distracted by his own thoughts during the exam or whatever. He just couldn't get in. Which means that he might take it as a sign now to not tell Mio how he feels, because he had decided he was only going to tell her if he passed. Meanwhile, Amazon decided not to subtitle the text messages that happened throughout this episode. They subtitled episodes 1 through 11, but not 12. And this is the episode where like some of the most important text messages in the entire series happen.
Yep.
So luckily, Leo and I were able to find like some translations of these texts online. Thank God. But Mio texts Ada to let him know that she got in to her first choice school. She doesn't say anything about Joey. She just says she got into her first choice. And he thinks to himself, I'm glad for her. Good for her. And so the next scene is just Mio, who is the valedictorian of their class, giving a speech at graduation. And it's like a pretty standard speech, nothing special. There's some really like non-existent animation during the speech. If you look at like the crowd shots, it's just kind of like panning over still frames of people in the crowd, like not moving, which is a little upsetting, but whatever. Afterwards, various characters talk to their friends or Kohai about graduating. It's kind of cute. And then Mio goes to look for Eita. And we see that Eita is telling his parents he has something he wants to do before he leaves school, and he also heads off to look for something. And so on her way, Mio bumps into Hazuki, and Hazuki asks her if she's told Eita about getting into Joei University yet. And she says she hasn't because Eita's not answering her text messages. And Hazuki chooses to not to tell Mio what she knows about Eita, what he's been doing, but instead just like vaguely reassures her that it's probably not her fault. Like he's probably not angry at her for anything. Like just keep going. So next, Haruto finds Hazuki, and she asks him, like, how is Eita doing with Mio, since Mio can't get a hold of him? And she's kind of concerned about their whole miscommunication and situation. And Haruto just says, Eita should be fine. And then he just smiles. And then at that point, there's a cute moment where Yoriko, like, sneaks a photo of the two of them who are, like, sitting by a window. And Haruto's like, give me that photo. And she's like, you need to buy me like a premium pork bun or some curry bun or something. And then Hazuki's like, I want that photo too. So it's very cute that they both want the photo that got taken of them on graduation. So it turns out Ada's first order of business is to go see Aina. and break the shit out of her heart. So first she tells him their club won first prize at the photography competition, right?
That's the best thing to happen this episode.
Yes. So they might be able to keep their club next year. And Eita's like, Aina tells him, like, it wasn't thanks to my own photography, though. And Eita's like, I know it wasn't. Because he actually went to the exhibition to see her photo. And it ends up that the photo that they decided to submit was not the one that she took of Eita pitching, but one that her clubmates took of her taking a photo of Eita pitching. And that's the one that won first prize, which is interesting. So typical of photography to have like the meta photo of the photographer taking the photo wins the competition. Fucking photography. Aina still says like, hey, it's thanks to you that I won though, because I was taking a picture of you that won. And then she gives Eita a yearbook that she made especially for him with pictures of like their groups of friends and all this stuff. And Eita's like, wow, this makes me really happy. And then Aina tries to get out in front of things. She says, you don't have to respond to my confession because you didn't pass your test. But Eita says, you told me up front anyway, so I feel like I need to respond to you. And he tells her, it made me really happy that you liked me, but I'm sorry, there's someone who I've liked for a long time. And Aina just says, I know that already. After all, that's the Eita senpai I fell in love with, the one who's in love with Mio. And she can barely hold it together, and he just leaves the room. And then we see Aina's like photography club members come back up the hallway, and they sort of stand outside the closed door, but we see inside the room that Aina just loses it, like bawling, crying, like obviously really upset that all of this effort she put into trying to get this guy was eventually useless because he just was in love with this girl from forever ago. So yeah. They say nothing after that, and Eita leaves the room. Oh, sorry. I skipped that. I went back to something I just read. Okay. So that part would be enough to make me a bit upset. Like, almost every anime romance has this issue of the first girl wins problem. That's
pretty true.
Yeah, the first girl MC is introduced to ends up being his romantic interest, regardless of any development with any other girl. And,
yeah, now that you say that, I'm thinking of some of the romance manga I read, and it's very true.
The thing is, like, with this anime, it's an original, so we didn't know where it was going necessarily, and Aina was built up so strongly in this anime that I almost believed that Just Because would do something different for once, but they didn't. But that's not where it ends. Far from it. Mio texts Eita to meet her on a hill to talk after graduation, and Eita ignores this text. And instead he texts Haruto to meet him at the baseball field because he decides like, I need to defeat him if I'm going to tell Mio my feelings. Like, it's all predicated on this one more baseball match. So Haruto is the pitcher this time, and he decides, the show also is determined to punish us even more because it shows Aina walk out of the school with like puffy eyes from all of her crying, and then she stops to watch the action on the baseball field just to make you feel even worse for her. There's also some like really dramatic dust blowing around on the field. It's kind of funny. So he takes him several swings, but there's a moment where he finally connects with the ball. It's actually a pretty cool moment because all of the sound cuts out except for the sound of the ball and the bat. And then he hits a long home run, basically. And it's funny because like he hits the ball and then like you see the ball disappear, but there's like a plane, like a jet plane that's leaving like contrails in the sky. And it looks like the ball turned into the plane. So anyway, I was laughing about that when I was watching the episode, but Haruto yells at Eita to go. And Eita starts running, right? It's like the end of your normal, typical romance anime. The guy's gonna run off and find the girl and declare his love, right? So we see him running, and we see Mio waiting on the hill, and then they don't meet. Eita doesn't find her, and I guess he never looked at his phone, and Mio stops waiting for him because she gets a text from her friends and she leaves. And then they never fucking talk to each other again until college. Ever.
Yeah.
Neither they nor their friends talk to each other at all about the exams, the relationship drama, anything until college, which is like a year later. So we fast forward a year And it's been a year because we know it has, because Aina gets accepted to a college. She gets accepted to the Tokyo Arts College. And both of her photo club members follow her to the same college because they love her so much. So that's kind of a nice ending for her, as nice as can be, I guess. We see that Hazuki and Haruto have stayed in contact through text, but we hear Hazuki asking Haruto if Eita knows about Mio. This is like a year later, which confirms that neither of their friends ever mentioned anything about it. And Haruto just says, oh, he'll probably figure it out. So in the end, Eita gets a text from Mio asking him how college is. And he replies, oh, it's pretty fun. And she says, well, I can tell you're having fun from the way you look from behind right now. And he turns around and she's there. And Eita says, I like you. And she says, I like you too. And then they like walk towards each other. And that's how the show ends.
Ouch. Do you need to take a breather before you start your rant?
I want to just get right into it. So my biggest problem with this ending, besides the fact that it's completely ridiculous, is that it goes like against the themes of this show that it was building up throughout it, in my opinion. Mio, at every opportunity, was told by her friends that she should not wait to tell Eita about her feelings, and that if she keeps putting it off, she'd never see her dreams come true. It will never happen. She needs to do something. She ignores all of this and continues to never communicate with Eita about how she feels. Basically just trusting that if she keeps doing things on her end, like applying for his school, it'll just work out eventually, because that's more important than actually telling him how she feels. And like I said before, their entire relationship seems to have been predicated on those two scenes of like him lifting a box for her, and then like at the shrine, like where he tells her that he felt that he was involved. And we know this is the level of romance it takes to woo Mio, as like we saw with she fell in love with Haruto because he gave her an eraser. Like, so this girl is just like completely winnable by the stupidest little things, and makes no attempt to make anyone understand her feelings. Like, remember when she tried to tell Haruto how she felt? She gave him an eraser and she said, that's it, goodbye. Like, so the thing is it just reinforces that terrible Japanese anime trope of the red string of fate, where as long as two characters are fated to be together, it doesn't matter if another character comes along, even if they try so hard, like Aina did, to like prove that like she's a better option for Eita, or like not even a better option, but like just to show her love for him. Like, just because he remembers her from middle school and loving her, that's enough to like say like, nah, forget you. Like, fuck everything you did for me. I don't give a shit. So, oh my God. In the end, I had so much hatred for the end of this show. Like, yeah. I just want to say fuck the director for making me think that Aina had a shot. Like, and making me think that like this show was making like intelligent character decisions early on. And then it makes the dumbest, most ununique decision possible at the end of this show when it mattered the most. Like, they just completely tricked me with this show, because they made it seem like a smart, interesting, well thought out show, only to do the same exact thing that other anime have done, but worse when you get to the end. My friend who I watched a lot of this show with, Enzo, he wanted me to quote him for this review. He says, quote, just because is like that time in the summer on a really hot day where you go to a local like ice cream store and you buy a waffle cone and it's your favorite flavor. And then the second you finish paying for it, you drop the cone on the ground. That's what just because is.
Not a bad analogy.
And then my quote, I decided if you had to ask me why Mio and Eita end up together at the end of this show, the main romantic couple, the only response I could properly give you is just because.
Yeah.
So Leo, how do you feel about this show?
I was just like, of course he wouldn't get in so that the two could still be together when they go to high school. That was just too easy. Darn it. I can't think of the word, but anyways. Yeah. Also, I hated that school speech. It was making me relive the boredom that was high school. I already said I'm really happy Aina won. But in the end, I think I've said this before, it's for the better. it's better for Ada
you
to
hate
not have
Ada
gotten
anyway.
with Ada.
I do too at this point.
Ada's
So, yeah.
garbage compared to what she actually deserves.
Yeah.
And then I was like, why the hell did they not translate this stupid message?
What the hell, Amazon? That was so weird.
Yeah, but did you want to read the translation?
Let's see. I mean, it's nothing. I think I mostly covered it in my review, like the important things they say to each other.
Yeah.
But man, it's just so dumb that they wouldn't ever talk to each other about what happened. And that their friends wouldn't be like, I think you guys should talk to each other, or like that Hazuki or like Haruto wouldn't take it upon themselves to say like, she took an entrance exam to get into your school, right? Or like they wouldn't just casually drop like, oh, by the way, it's cool that you're both going to Joe. Like at any point in that year, they have a text message group. It would come up immediately. Oh my God. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. I can't believe how dumb it is.
Oh man.
Anyway.
Okay. We can move on. Let's do Inuyashiki, The Last Hero. It has only 11 episodes, so this is the final episode for the show.
Yeah.
And it is called People of Earth. Inuyashiki arrives home to his family, who is speculative at first, but still accept him as Inuyashiki. Of course, all the kids at school are talking about the old man who saved people, but at work, nobody recognized it was him because he has such a weak presence. It was kind of a long stretch there, but okay. Somebody's famous like that. Of course, somebody's going to recognize you at work. Ando returns home to find Hiro in his room. He then suggests that they read the latest Jump, and then he goes to the bathroom and calls in Inuyashiki. Then he goes back in the room, and Ando says he knew he called the old man, but Hiro doesn't care. He says he just stopped by to laugh and read manga like old times. Ando asks, how many people have you killed? And Hiro starts to cry, and then he leaves as Inuyashiki arrives at the house. Hiro is then sitting in a park, and he's watching the news where everybody's hating on him. He also pays one last visit to Shion and her grandma. He just watches them at a distance with tears in his eyes. I think the show is trying to sell us on Hiro being a good guy or something at this point, so we're supposed to feel for him when he blows himself up later on. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Inuyashiki runs into his son one evening at a convenience store and he's still getting bullied at school. His son says he wants to be a machine too and save people. They have a little heart-to-heart, and the whole family goes on like a little outing the next day. So like they're actually being a family for once. They arrive home to find out that America failed to stop the asteroid, and they have 3 days left. They hilariously, it may be so on point, put Donald Trump on the TV and have him say what he would most definitely say in this situation. He's like,
yeah, I thought like what Donald Trump said was like pretty incomprehensible and dumb, and I was like, wow, that's extremely realistic.
yeah, that's what I said. That's what I was thinking too. I was like, he would maybe actually say that in this situation, but he's like, you guys are all losers.
Yeah, fuck all you losers. Yeah.
You're all losers. I became president. I have no regrets in life. So all you losers can live out the rest. It's just like, good God.
Oh my God.
So of course, at this point, society starts to break down because who the fuck wants to go to work and school when you have 3 days left to live? But Inuyashiki hasn't given up yet, and he's going to do what he can to stop this asteroid. As he leaves, his daughter holds on to him, screaming and crying, don't go. The rest of the family, and even Hanako, the dog, who falls down the stairs.
That dog got wrecked.
And they all go outside and like see him blast off.
Like that dog falling down the stairs may be the most well-animated part of this episode.
Dude, I watched that and I had to rewind. I was like, I had to make sure I saw that right.
It was so good.
Oh, man. But there's also a little scene where like he fills up on water. So like you noted, we both must have missed the part where water is his source of fuel.
It must have come up like at some point before, I guess, but they didn't make a big deal of it. So
yeah. So Inuyashiki lands on the asteroid and starts pulling out chunks and fires his cannons into a hole, blasting off more, but it doesn't look like it's going to be near enough. This thing is huge. Suddenly, Hiro appears and says he wants to help shift its trajectory. Even he has people he cares about, is what he says, mainly Ando and Shion. Hiro says he ran some simulations, and if he detonates in this specific spot, he can change his trajectory. Hiro has Inuyashiki pushing his eyes that activates the sequence. He explodes, but still not enough according to Inuyashiki's simulator. He decides he might have to blow himself up also. This is when Ando ends up calling him, and Inuyashiki lies to him, saying the asteroid will miss the Earth and he's on his way to his family. Inuyashiki then starts his self-destruct sequence and blows himself up, averting the asteroid. His family and Ando seem to be completely aware of what he just did. They know he blew up.
They see like a bright flash in the sky, yeah.
Yeah, it like completely, yeah. But I guess they didn't assume what the first one was. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Hey, happy ending. Mari won the manga she submitted to Jump. So there's that.
So yeah, I thought the scene in the beginning of the episode where Ichirou's wife asks him like what they did together on their honeymoon to see if he's really the same person and not just a robot was really touching. Like when Ichirou was like telling her all of like the mundane stupid shit they did on their honeymoon, and they started like crying and hugging each other. But like some of the scenes with the family kind of fell flat. Like I had almost forgotten that he even had a son. And then they tried to make the son a thing this episode. Because like there's just been so little of the family since like the first couple episodes that, and I'd always been complaining about that. I wanted to see more of his relationship with his family, but it would have made more of an impact at the end if they had done that. Also, everyone seems to get upset like when Ichirou says he's going to do something about the asteroid, which doesn't make sense to me because they've seen his capabilities to this point, right? And like Ando knows that he can survive in outer space, and like Mari is like overreacting to me in that moment because like it seems like she has like plot knowledge, like she knows that her dad's gonna die. Like that's the only reason she would be acting that hysterically, in my opinion, at that point. Because like she doesn't even know what her dad's capable of. Like she doesn't know that her dad's gonna have to self-destruct to divert this asteroid. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, just like the weird thing about the water fueling their powers, I thought that kind of came out of nowhere, but I'm sure it was mentioned like briefly. I don't know. And I also, there's one little tiny touch I liked where Hiro tries to talk to Ichirou in space, like just by like talking, and he's like, oh shit, there's no sound. So he has to call him instead. That was a nice little realistic space touch.
Yeah. Yep.
So I mean,
your last thoughts?
It was a finale. I mean, I knew something with the asteroid had to happen. They'd been like hyping it up.
True.
And it makes sense to me that Hiro sacrificed himself, even though he's like an evil bastard. Like he says, like there are like even me. There's people I care about. He cares about Shion. He cares about Shion's grandmother, maybe, and that's about it.
Yeah, he cares about Ando too. That's what he says.
Yeah, he cares about Ando. Yeah.
But let's see here.
I just want to say Ando's long distance phone plan got wrecked this episode.
Oh God. I say both of them dying made sense. You know, you have to remove both these super powerful figures from this world. Otherwise, other shit can go down. You know? Yeah.
And all of those people who had cancer in hospitals in Tokyo and Japan got real lucky in those like 2 weeks. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Very good luck for them. So anyway, anything else on that?
Nope, that's it.
All right, on Friday, we've got the last episode. Well, it's actually an OVA episode of Recovery of an MMO Junkie.
Which is interesting 11. Because it should just be episode 11.
It basically is just the next episode. Yeah. So Moriko's motherboard dies. So instantly I'm interested in this because I love putting together computers. And Yuta offers to build a new computer for her rather than just buying one. But of course that means that Yuta has to come over to her place. So Moriko goes on like the mother of all cleaning sprees. And it takes her a little longer than she expected, and she pulls this like hilarious move. She's like on the ground, like heaving from like having cleaned like crazy. And then like she realizes she's going to be late to meet up with him to go buy the computer parts. So she pulls this move where she like takes like two hands and just rips off all of her clothes in like one motion. I was like, wow, that's impressive. So anyway, she and Yuta buy the parts and they bring them back to her place, and they're both like very nervous. So Yuta is installing the operating system. And Moriko is pouring some green tea, and she gets like distracted by how dreamy he looks. And she starts spilling the tea, and then Yuta's like, oh no, the tea. And then he like trips over his computer chair as he tries to like help her. And boom, he falls right on top of her, and they're in like sexy time position right up against the bed. But interrupting that moment, the doorbell rings. And it's just like some freaking crazy people who ask like Moriko if she believes in aliens, and she just slams the door on them. Meanwhile, the MMO, like FIIIIIRRRRE, finishes downloading, and Moriko is kind of torn because she wants to play with like virtual Lily as soon as possible. But she doesn't want real life Yuta to leave either. Luckily, he thought of this, and he brought a laptop with him so they can both play at her place. So they complete a quest in-game that allows their characters to go to a hot spring together. And this gets the idea in their heads that maybe they should go on a trip to a real onsen resort. And they both have like panic attacks about it. But Yuta thinks of like inviting Homare to make it less awkward. And they decide that they'll do it, but it's a story for another time, and not this OVA at least, which is too bad because I would have liked to see that. It would have been fun. But instead, the second half of this episode involves Moriko falling asleep and getting transported inside the game FIIIIIRRRRE. And apparently Yuta has been made a princess, and the Demon King Homare is forcing him into marriage. So Moriko, who is like her actual self inside of the game, she meets up with Hayashi and Lily, and they save her from like a dungeon monster. And when Moriko tells her name to them, they know her as the legendary hero Mori Mori for some reason. So Moriko finds Fujimoto working at a convenience store in the game that's owned by his character, Kanbei. And they have a loot box gacha game going on where the top prize is this set of pink bikini armor that is apparently Homare's only weakness. So they
very
like,
skimpy armor.
Yeah, they decide like they don't want to wear it, like, but like I think Kanbei ends up like bringing it along anyway. So they fight their way into the castle, and they get to the throne room, and Moriko refuses to put on the pink bikini armor, though we do still get a fan service shot of what she would look like in it, which kind of defeats the point of her not wanting to wear it, but whatever. Yuta sees that she feels
staying true to her character.
Yeah, I guess so.
And then that's just the creators being like, here, we'll give you the fan service shot anyways.
Yeah, it is an OVA after all. So
yeah.
Yuta sees that she feels awkward about all of this, and he just puts the pink armor on himself. And Homura is like, I guess I should have been more specific about who wore my worst weakness. And he like disappears. So Yuta goes to try to take off this bikini, but apparently it's cursed, so he can never remove it. And at that point, Yuta wakes up from a dream. So it was kind of like, I guess it was unclear whether this was all Yuta's dream or whether it was also Moriko's dream.
I think they both shared the dream.
Yeah, or if it was a shared dream.
Yeah. And
he just says, man, it's definitely not healthy to be playing so much MMOs. The end. I liked the first part of this episode. The second part was like, it was all right. I
agree.
I definitely wanted to see more of like a romantic encounter between these adults, like 30-year-olds, like Yuta and Moriko. I'm glad we got like a little bit of that. I would have enjoyed a little bit more, but this show has always been like more comedy than romance anyway. So I guess.
I just think the way they portrayed their relationship in the first half is basically spot on for who they are.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, in the end, I think the show did a good job in like staying true to itself and what it was about. I wish that some of the side characters had gotten a little bit more reason to be in the show, or at least, or if not, just had been taken out. Maybe like, I don't know. There's just like the girl who is like the cat-eared girl with the pink hair. Like she was a college student. Like she had like nothing to do in this show. Like she had like 3 lines in the whole show. I don't know. I was like, why is she even here? But anyway.
I don't know, just to even things out.
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, which she does. So.
I mean, other than the leader of their group, he was the only one that actually had something to do.
Yeah, and even he was like kind of confused about what he had to do in the end. I don't know.
Yeah, like you could have written the other ones out and it would have been fine.
Yeah, but in the end, still a pretty solid show. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yep. Cool. Let's talk some Kino's Journey to Beautiful World, the animated series. I'm just going to tell the listeners now, prepare yourself for when I'm done with my episode review.
I bet you're so upset that you don't get to review episode 12.
I'm surprised you wrote as much as you did.
There was a lot to get into. No, I'm just joking.
There's 10 whole minutes that you didn't even write shit about. But anyways, episode 11, Country of Adults. Kino and Hermes are traveling through a field of red flowers, and Kino falls over laughing, dumping Hermes on the side. That's it. We are introduced to a young 11-year-old Kino before she started her travels with long hair and a name that she can't remember, though she does remember it had something to do with a flower. She meets the original Kino one day, who asks her where he can find a hotel. Turns out young Kino's parents, runs one, and she takes him there. Original Kino finds an old motorrad out back, and he fixes it with young Kino watching on. This motorrad turns out to be Hermes, that young Kino named after original Kino's old motorrad. It's young Kino's last week as an 11-year-old, and on her birthday, she will have surgery on her head to have the child part of her removed so she will be able to do a job without any complaint as an adult.
Damn.
The look on your face is the exact same look on original Kino's face. Something's not right.
Yeah, he has the appropriate reaction to
He's
that.
just like, yeah, something's fucked up here. So it turns out the children on their last week also get to eat a special candy each day.
It seemed like that candy was probably like some sort of drug to prepare them for this surgery.
I assumed that too. The two also have a conversation that makes young Kino want to become an adult without the surgery. She basically wants to be like original Kino. She kind of idolizes him. Mm-hmm. The next day, when young Kino awakes, her parents are downstairs talking to some guests about young Kino's surgery the next day. When Kino expresses that she would like to become an adult with the surgery, her parents fucking snap, yelling at her and that she's disgracing the surgery that made them such good adults, and she must apologize right now. And just like absolute like insane people, just insane.
Yeah.
The father then speculates it must be the traveler that put the thoughts in young Kino's head and goes outside to yell at him. He also has Hermes up and running at the moment. The pastor tells the father to back off and explains to original Kino that each country has its own rules and should be respected. Original Kino says he's leaving anyways and explains to young Kino that it's his policy to only stay in a country for 3 days. So we know where we're... Young Kino got that. Mm-hmm. Original Kino looks up to see the father holding a kitchen knife, and the pastor explains that since the girl has rejected their great surgery, she will have to be disposed of. Basically, the children are the parents' property.
Yeah.
The father goes after young Kino, and original Kino jumps in the way and takes the blow of the knife into his heart. As the father struggles to pull the knife from the original Kino's chest, Hermes starts talking to young Kino and gives her a third option of riding him and getting the fuck out of there. Also, the father's like, no, I'm not a murderer, am I? This is a murder. And the pastor's like, no, that's not a murder. He jumped in the way of your knife. And like the father and like mother are like laughing as they try to pull the stuck knife out of the dude's chest.
They're gone. They have no humanity. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, she gets on Hermes and flies the fuck out of there from Hermes' instructions. And I just will say, though, nobody gets on a motorcycle and rides anywhere near that well the first time. It doesn't matter.
She was an expert bicycle rider, Leo.
It doesn't matter if you've ridden a fucking bicycle. It's a completely different world.
Yeah.
Not to mention, Hermes is heavy.
Yeah, for sure.
He's easily 500 pounds dry, and probably heavier since he's like an old type model, probably made of like more cast iron than like steel and shit like that. But young Kino. So they make it out of town, and young Kino then drops Hermes and falls in a field of red flowers, just like the opening to this episode. Also, I doubt an 11-year-old could pick up a motorcycle that's on its side. Again, these things are heavy. Adults struggle with motorcycles.
Yeah.
Good God.
They actually even make a note in like episode 12 to say like, like Hermes is talking to Kino and saying like, it's, you know, it always takes a lot of effort for you to pick me up. It's just like, yeah, but she did it when she was 11.
I think I may have made a note because that popped up. I'm like, you stupid show, you completely ignored that rule you just talked about. Yeah. Just the entire series, the motorcycle physics have just been super messed up. I guess it's not that important, but it just bugs the shit out of me because I'm right. Because there's like scenes where she's casually walking with that girl from the last episode, and they're going up a hill, and I'm like, no. Kino would be hunched over, grunting with exertion, trying to push a motorcycle up any incline. That's my thoughts on it.
So I took this episode as a pretty sick burn on like religious indoctrination, basically. Because there's like a man in the church who is the one who is like talking, and like he's a pastor who comes to their home who says like, we need to like do this surgery. Like, are you ready to do the surgery now? Blah, blah, blah. And like, yeah, it's this surgery will allow them to no longer be a child and not have to care about things anymore. And they do things that they would have hated to do when they had the childlike innocence they used to have. And in fact, if you replace Kino's question to her parents of, do I have to have the surgery to become an adult, with, do I have to accept the same religion as you did to become an adult? You may see the same exact type of reaction in some religious households around the United States, where children might try to come out to their parents as atheists, and their parents will disown them or have this extremely violent reaction to it because they refuse to accept their fundamentalist views or whatever. So it's just definitely like parallels of this with religion in the real world anyway. But this episode and the previous episode were aired in the opposite order of the way they were aired in the original series, which is strange. Totally right.
I didn't catch that until you explained it to me, and I'm like, oh, they fucked that up.
Yeah. So in the original series, you would know that like, oh, Kino was this girl who grew up, her parents ran an inn, and she had a weird name that people made fun of because it was related to a flower. And then you would see the next episode where she meets this little girl who reminds her of herself and has this name that friends made fun of because it was Sakura or whatever. So like the way it's presented this time, because it's presented in the opposite order, almost makes it feel like Kino was like hallucinating or something, memories of her former life. I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. Like it had so much more impact the other way around in the original series. Oh, yeah. So also this was the episode, especially in the original series, that made it like 100% crystal clear that Kino was at least born female, which was like a big deal back then. Apparently people were like really arguing over whether Kino was male or female. In the end, it doesn't really matter. Kino takes on this persona of this male biker named Kino. And she finds it easier to travel around with that male persona because people don't bother you as much when you're a guy and you're traveling around. But like, you know, originally she was a little girl. But one interesting thing I noticed, though, is that Kino's eyes when she's a little 11-year-old are purple. And when she grows up, they're like an icy blue. So
that's just probably an easy way to show a change in her character.
I think so. Like, I don't think, I think they're the same person. Like, I guess you could have some doubt about whether it really was her, whether this memory is real or not.
I don't feel that way.
I don't feel that way either. But all that said, I think this was probably the best episode of the original series for sure. And I think it was still pretty powerful this time around. Like, it was a pretty damn good episode.
Yep.
Speaking of pretty damn good episodes.
I would just like to forewarn people, if you are legal drinking age, go grab yourself a stiff one because you're going to be mouthing, what the fuck?
Episode 12, Fields of Sheep. Kino and Hermes disturb a flock. Leo has made a note here, an army of sheep as they're riding down the road. And the sheep are just aggro as hell, and they start chasing after Hermes and Kino. And this wouldn't be a problem, except further up the road, there's another flock of sheep who also get enraged by Kino, and they start chasing from the other direction. So they have to go off-road to their right, and they start like racing away, but they come up against this wide ravine that has like a cliff fall off, and they can't jump it. So Hermes tells Kino, just lay me down and just climb down the cliff and escape, and you can come back and get me when it's safer. And so Kino gets down there, and she can't climb up the other side of the ravine because the rock is too soft. So her only choice is just continue along the stream and try to find a way out. And Hermes tells her, I'll try to learn sheep language and talk them out of it while you're gone. So she walks along the stream, right? And the sheep are like following her above, looking down at her like eerily. And she falls asleep with them looking at her. But when she wakes up, they're gone. And so she climbs up the cliff to like get a peek at them. And she sees that they are like grazing like further away. But there's also a Jeep in the distance, and she gets up and she goes and looks at this Jeep. And there's a skeleton of a guy who died next to it. And she figures out that he basically committed suicide with a revolver because he broke his leg when he got his Jeep stuck in this ditch. And there's basically nothing he could do.
All right, everybody listening, this is where you take a big swig of your drink. Okay? I'm warning you.
Luckily, Kino is able to get the Jeep working because it had like a barrel of fuel. So she's like fills it up and like she's able to get it back working. She's able to get it over the ditch with some planks.
I call bullshit on that battery being any good.
Yeah, who knows how long that's been dead. Yeah.
It took long enough for a human body to decompose.
Yeah, it's a pretty long time, actually.
Yeah.
Unless the sheep really, just had their way with that body, which is possible.
His bones would have been scattered.
Yeah. So Kino starts driving the Jeep back towards Hermes. And on the way, the sheep catch onto her and she starts ramming through the sheep. And they're just like flying every which way off of her Jeep as she
I need that gif, by
the way.
She just
plows through these fucking sheep.
Her plowing through sheep.
So like it's so dumb. One sheep jumps into the back of her Jeep and Kino just like one shots it in the head with a gun, blowing it out the back.
These really angry faces too. It's hilarious.
And the sheep, by the way, have the most human sounding voices. It's fucking ridiculous.
It's a human going bah
or like so stupid. So like the dying noises they make are so funny because they're like really like humans like trying to make the most ridiculous noises they could think of. And so they're still trapped by sheep outside these like flames. Wait, did I skip something? I might have skipped something. Oh yeah, I did. Okay. So once she pulls a cap out of the barrel of fuel that she set up on the back of her Jeep, and so fuel starts leaking out, right? And once it's empty, she drives away from the fuel line and then she shoots it with a bullet. And so it lights the entire like a big semicircle of the field on fire. And so most of the sheep are kept outside of the fire, but there's like a few trapped inside. So Kino gets on top of the Jeep with his sniper rifle and just starts like destroying all of the sheep that are still trapped inside with her. And so they're still trapped by the sheep that are outside the flames. So Kino sets up a ramp, like Hermes said earlier, for them to jump over the ravine. So they get it set up and they're about to like jump it, but then this one brave sheep jumps over the flames and gets in between them and the ramp. And then Kino and the sheep have an epic stare down at each other, and it charges at her, and then Kino just caps it in the dome with the dead man's persuader, which she had taken off his body, and it just like flies past her right shoulder in slow motion and back through the flames. And so then Kino and Hermes start driving, and a bunch of sheep like start following even through the flames, and she makes the jump, and like the sheep like are tumbling down into the ravine. And amazingly, because of the angle she landed, like Kino's not injured and Hermes doesn't get broken.
I would like to interject here. When she's on top of the Jeep sniping all of the sheep, she's shooting them and they're like flying back into the flames. And also this entire sheep massacre is 10 minutes long. There's 10 solid minutes of continuously brutal ways of killing these sheep.
It's so good.
Every 20 seconds, I'm mouthing, what the fuck? What? Why does this episode even exist? I think I messaged you and I said like 3 words or something. I was like, sheep fighting rings, and you were like, "Oh God!"
I was like, "Do not spoil this for me." And you're like, "Can I at least send you a picture?" And I was like, "Fine, one picture." And I just see this picture of Kino on Hermes driving away from sheep, like with a huge ball of fire behind all of them. And I'm just like, "What the fuck is this episode?" And I was like, "Oh, it's probably
So
gonna be some like
bad.
really interesting philosophical thing about sheep." And I was like, "No, it's not."
No, not at all. Like it. Okay, keep going. I'm good.
Yeah, so the way they explain all of this, so she arrives at the country that she was like going to, and the man at the gate asks her if there were any sheep in the fields on her way there, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I passed by some fucking sheep." And he tells her that their country used to selectively breed like brave, aggressive fighting sheep, just like dog fighting basically, but sheep fighting for their entertainment. But animal rights activists put a stop to it, so they decided to just release these sheep into the wild with like a nice field with lots of food. And Kino and Hermes are like, "Should we tell him?" But they decide they just skip past that. That's how that ends. That's just, they released lethal killer sheep out into the wild and didn't think anything of it.
Oh God. So my final thoughts are, I find physics wrong in almost every single episode. That bullet's not going to light the fire and so on and so forth. I already talked about pushing motorcycles up a hill and all that stuff. So it's all over the place. One of the other things I want to add, there's no way that Jeep wouldn't be fucked up without a special guard after ramming all those sheep.
Yeah.
I mean, have people seen what a single deer can do to a car?
Yeah.
Wow.
And these sheep, like some of them were like ramming themselves into the Jeep with like horns and stuff too. I guess
Yeah,
they were
it's
rams as
insane.
well. Yeah.
But as anime fans, we all dread that moment when something lewd comes up on the screen and somebody walks up behind us and we're like, that's not what the show's about. But rarely has something violent happened that I have had this worry. This was until I watched Kino mowing down sheep with a car and setting the place on fire.
Yeah, and people like walk up to you like, "What the fuck is that?" That would be an interesting conversation to have to
you're
try
like,
to explain.
Well, Kino is the show's philosophical. I don't know what the philosophical part about it is about murdering shit yet, but I'll get back with you. Like, you can't explain this.
And then, so there was like a little peaceful segment to close out the show that was just called Kino's Nap, where she's just like napping on a hammock, and she's talking with Hermes about how this is the end of her journey, but when she wakes up tomorrow, it'll be the start of a new journey. She's basically just saying like the way you look at things can change how you experience them. And Hermes is like, "Our journey's been lots of fun." And then like after the credits, Kino wakes up, puts on her goggles, and drives off with Hermes to start a new journey, essentially. So it was a little like cute way to end the show, basically. But I really don't have any like deep thoughts about this episode. This is clearly an episode that fans asked for. Like, I'm sure, because like this whole show was like a fan like produced, like fan voted on thing.
So they just wanted an episode of Kino being a total badass, I'm assuming.
Just like murdering sheep. Yes. Oh man, what a ridiculous way to end that show.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like
geez.
it could be like an OVA episode. It's like a crazy OVA. And then like really episode 11 was the end of the show narratively.
Yeah.
But
So as a perfect segue, I think BCom also agrees with this opinion. We both believe if you want a show with a girl or girls traveling on motorcycles talking about philosophical things in a totally different type of world setting, we think we're talking about the new Kino here. We think Girls Tour is the better.
Girls Last Tour.
I'm sorry, Girls Last Tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
it's definitely did a better job this season.
Yeah, we talked to somebody else. It was Brains, but like we're not talking about the original Kino. I've never seen it. We're talking about the new Kino from the same season.
Yeah, and for me, who has seen the original Kino, I don't know if I would say Girls Last Tour is better, but just to put it in the same company is enough of a like compliment. Like it's in that same company.
Cool. So, Girls Last Tour, episode 11, Culture, Destruction, and the Past. Quick opening of you feeding their cat thing a bullet, causing Chi to slam on the brakes and turn around. The thing then says, "It's yummy and wants to eat more." Apparently, you has been teaching it, and it's gotten far enough to know which one is you and Chi. Chi finds a book, but unfortunately it's in English and she can't read it. Poor Chi. Yu wants to take a tank bullet and Chi won't let her. It was kind of funny. But they do come across a strange contraption that doesn't seem to really have a purpose when the radio starts playing again. This contraption, this is really interesting. So here in my town, we have this structure called Chaos, and it sits in the Commons Mall, and it literally serves no purpose. It has a bunch of weird things that rotates on it. It's got these bowling balls that rotates on the track like every 30 minutes or something like that. It does what it totally made me think of.
Yeah, just like some weird piece of like kind of functional modern art, basically.
Yeah, if you wanted to Google it, it'd be Columbus, Indiana Chaos, and it'd probably give you pictures of it. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I will Google it now.
So the cat's name is Nuko, and it can actually tell what direction this signal is coming from, so the girls head that way. You asked why they even need their helmets, and the chances of something landing on their head would just mean they were really unlucky. On cue, a giant robot starts to fall, raining parts down on them and forcing them to back up. You had a little quick take on this?
Oh, sorry, I was looking at Chaos. Yeah, the giant robot, like, there was just a really good music cue when that came on. Like, yeah. Like, hold on.
No,
yeah.
you had something to say about the helmets.
Oh, yeah, just like the whole commentary of this episode about how like inadequate helmets would be in this age of mass destruction. Like you keep saying, oh, I'm so glad I had my helmet on, and Cheeto's just like, dude, we would have died regardless. Like we would be so dead if any of this had happened. Like if it had fallen on us, or if the stuff that happens later in the episode had happened. Yeah.
So they investigate the robot that fell down, and Nuko plugs himself into it and turns it on. You being you, so you being you as she is, starts touching stuff and fires a missile, which is just kind of like, lol, that's funny. She then is like, let's see what these other buttons do. And then you fires a giant atomic laser beam and sets the whole city on fire.
Yeah. You
starts laughing because she's fucking crazy, and she punches her saying, this isn't funny.
Yeah, that was like, so that was the music cue I liked, because like when she like set the whole damn world on fire and it was like a blaze of glory, essentially, it was like a very, very dramatic, like heartfelt music cue. Like, oh God, this is like the reality of the war that created this post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah, basically.
So yeah, that came across very powerfully, I thought. And then like you just like literally like Chi slapping you across the face, saying like, no, this isn't funny.
She straight up punched her, I believe.
Yeah, no, you're right. She does punch her, like knocks her away, and like you is like, I'm sorry. Like she gets it.
So the girls lay down to sleep, and she writes in her journal and suddenly notices that Nuko looks a lot like the statues they'd seen before. So as they're getting more fuel the next day, Nuko starts to drink the fuel itself and says it's yummy. They make their way through a wind turbine field, and on the other side, they find a sub that's docked. Nuko says that's where the signal is coming from, so they go up top, and she can't get the hatch open, but Nuko plugs in and opens it himself. The girls explore the sub a little bit and find it still has power. As the final shot, we see the girls walking past nuclear missiles. So it's a nuclear sub. Mm-hmm. Big problems.
Might as well just go straight into the next episode, because basically it's a two-parter.
Yeah. Episode 12, Connection/Friends. We pick right up from the last episode, and the girls continue their exploring and find some non-perishable chocolate to munch on. As Chi starts to take a picture of you holding the chocolate, the camera connects itself to all the monitors in this like control room they're in, and it displays the pictures. They open a folder containing pictures that they didn't take and find a picture of Kanazawa standing with a woman. There are a couple more pictures of the woman, and they wonder what happened to her. Turns out there's a lot of folders, so Nuko offers to open all of them, which just totally blows away the girls. They are amazed the most by how many people are in these pictures.
Yeah, apparently this camera has a long history.
It has like a 3 terabyte micro SD card in it, apparently. Mm-hmm. More than that, actually. Chi finds a video and they play it, and then they start playing all kinds of videos after the first one. There's everything from daily life to sports events and some about the war that destroyed the world. It's finally the episode that BCom wanted that gave some history about this world. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure. Like you see, like the robot that they accidentally launched missiles from, like you see like an army of them just like walking through cities, like shooting their atomic like laser beams all over the place. It's like, and just like other like crazy machine armies walking everywhere. Like Japan, it seemed like Japan declared war on like surrounding areas. Basically, whatever happened, it was basically like a World War III with like atomic robots, and that's why we are where we are.
Japan did it. They finally built a Gundam.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah,
and they're like, we have the power. We will take on the world. Yu wakes up after having a dream and runs into a much larger version of Nuko, like horse size. Chi wakes up to see the large Nuko swallow you and walk away. Chi's like, what the fuck? So she arms herself and goes after you with Nuko on her head.
The little one, yeah.
Yeah, the little one. Chi at one point trips and starts to cry about you being gone, but she gets back up and soldiers on. She finally climbs out of the sub and the creature spits you out. The creature then speaks and tells them a little bit about what she is. What they do is like they ingest nuclear materials, any type of weapons, things like that. There's some really strange creature. Mm-hmm. It then transforms into a mushroom, and it continues to explain that it eats electronics for energy, and they don't eat humans. And it also ate the radio that Yu was wearing when she was inside of it.
Yeah.
This was also the creature that was broadcasting the song they kept picking up every once in a while. It continues to explain once they have eaten all the material and like all these other creatures start coming up out of the sub, the same thing like she is. And she explains that once they've eaten all this material, they will then hibernate themselves. It also says they have surveyed most of the upper levels already, and they are the last two humans alive. So they honestly don't know about the other two humans they've met since they were from lower levels.
Either that or those two humans have died, but I assume it's just they haven't met them. Yeah.
Yeah. They travel in groups, so they take Nuko with them as they float off into the sky. Chi holds Yu's hand and says, even if the world ends, I'm fine as long as I have you. The girls raid, it's really nice because she's not very emotional, so it's kind of neat to see her get a little emotional there.
Yeah.
The girls raid the sub of its canned goods, and Yu teases Chi about being so sentimental earlier. But in the end, Yu says she loves Chi too. They then continue on their journey to the highest level. Yu says once they reach the top, they should go to the moon next.
Of course she does say that.
Yep. The end.
So yeah, this episode kind of seemed about like, it had a theme of like the information that you pass on to the future. Because like they make that comment about the flavor of non-perishable chocolate and how flavor is like a type of information that can continue on into the future, just like the books that she always tries to find. And like I was really happy because remember when we had that Kanazawa episode where he gave him the camera, gave them the camera. I was saying I really want to see what pictures he took before he gave them the camera. I wonder if they'll ever figure it out.
You got just that.
Yeah, of course they did figure it out. And so we got all of this crazy backstory, like flashing all at once. It seemed like they were watching like 10 videos at once at the same time and just like kind of like flitting their eyes between each one of those videos, like getting tidbits of the information, but like maybe not the whole picture. But it was still enough to understand what happened. And
I was going to say, it just did a good job of explaining how the world ended up like it did. Like there's just enough information there. I can fill in all the gaps.
Except for that one stupid video of the three little girls who are in like, we're in the evolutionary robot research club and we invented this robot today. So
I think it was to kind of prove the point of what their technological advances were. I mean, like these were high school girls in a club and they had like built a miniature robot to do shit. So
yeah,
I think that was the point of them.
And we know how high school club anime end up when when little girls build robots. No, it's probably not going to go very well. They probably caused the apocalypse, these little three girls, let me tell you.
Yeah, possibly. It all started with the 3 little girls in a high school club.
Yeah, it all started with a slice of life anime, and then World War III broke out. But yeah, it was interesting, like the idea of the Nuko things that eat all of the material like from the war. So I wonder if that was something. So like there's statues of those things they've passed by many of those statues. So I'm assuming that people like there was a peace movement maybe. And maybe
at some point they started worshiping them in a way.
Yeah, because they were like deleting the war materials essentially, or getting rid of them and trying to save the world. But I guess it was probably just too late. Like everybody died anyway. I don't know, but something like that had to have happened, I guess. The other theory I had was that, so since like the little Nuko was able to interact with some of the technology, like he was able to turn on the war robot and he was able to open up the submarine hatch. Maybe those things were originally designed to operate like the war machinery. But then once humanity started like being destroyed, maybe they decided that they had to just clean up any unstable materials to protect humans before they went into hibernation. I don't know. There's a lot to like unpack and like potentially could have happened. And I don't know. I'd love to see more of this series someday.
Yeah. There's I guess there's more to the manga. I really want to go read it, but I'm going to wait a year.
This feels like a solid ending though. Like I'm not unhappy with this ending. Yeah.
Oh no, it's a great ending. But I'm not going to chance it in case there's word of a season 2, because then I definitely want to watch it.
I kind of doubt it, but we'll see.
Yep.
So moving on Saturdays, we've got The Ancient Magus Bride, and we'll finish up the last 2 episodes of this first half of the season, as it will be ongoing in winter. So episode 11 is Lovers Ever Run Before the Clock. In this episode, we learn about Lyndall's time when he was raising chibi Elias. And according to him, Elias was always sort of missing something and seemed to view every situation he was in sort of from outside of himself, like he was not really a part of it. So he tells Chise about this one time when Lyndall and Elias went to this village, and Lyndall offered to heal some sick children in exchange for food. But the sister of the sick boy had, quote unquote, the sight and was able to see Elias, who was hiding in Lyndall's shadow. So she saw his red eyes and like the shadow form of this monster. And so they're chased out of the village by this angry mob who are like, oh, it's demons and monsters. And Lyndall is hit by somebody in the head with a stone and starts bleeding. And Elias, being like very immature, not knowing what to do, immediately acts to defend Lyndall. And he like takes on a huge monstrous form, and he's about to start just slaughtering everybody in the village before Lyndall stops him just in time and transports both of them away to this like forest land of the gods. It's kind of in this foggy like branches of forest somewhere in between, I feel like, heaven and like the real world. So once they're back to safety, Elias tells Lyndall that he's fairly sure he's eaten humans before. And Chise, who's being told this story, when she hears this part, it kind of sends like a jolt through her. And Lyndall asks her, do you think Elias could be a man-eating monster? And she thinks back to that scene where she was sleeping with Elias when he was in his monster form, and he was slobbering over her while she was supposed to be asleep, but she like had one eye open. And she thinks about it though, when she says, I've been scared of monsters all my life. I've always heard them talking about how they want to eat humans and all of this. But for whatever reason, Elias never scared her at all. So she believes in him, basically. And Lyndall, she's going on, but Lyndall says like, save the rest of your thoughts for Elias. Just tell him the rest. So back then though, Lyndall had told Elias, she was like, how did you resolve the situation? Like at that point, and he's like, well, I told Elias, I bet I'm delicious, so please don't eat me. And then he like just kind of like shut down the conversation by telling him to like think about eating lots of different types of food, and then you'll get over your desire to eat humans. And so Lyndall says Elias refuses to tell people about himself and is still stuck in the mindset of a child. So when Chisei wakes up the next morning, she almost gets trampled by some like dragonling kids, and she gets knocked into the lake, and she actually sees this like really beautiful water dragon underneath the surface before she swims back up. But Lyndall gives her this selection of different types of wood to choose from to carve her new wand. And he cuts a little bit of her hair off because hair holds magic and it will form part of the core of her wand. So there's no secret to carving the wand, he says. But he tells her it's good to like talk to yourself while you're doing it. And she has a ton of trouble with this because she says like, I've never really thought about myself until now. Like ever. So as the day passes, Chisei continues to carve. We see some really relaxing scenes of dragons like flying around and playing. And by nightfall, Chisei almost has like the shape of the wand finished. And so it's like a beautiful moonlit night. So Lyndall decides to show Chisei something really special. The land of the dragons was like sort of created by elves, apparently. And he tells her if they dance together, like these special flowers will bloom. And he says, you know, my other name is Echoes of the 100 Flowers, and that all of my spells are songs. And he breaks out into one of those songs, and it kind of sounds like a Disney like fairy tale or something. And like the meadow starts coming alive, and it's dancing with like pink blooming flowers. And these elves invite Chisei to dance. She's really reluctant because she's never danced before. But Lindo just tells her like, don't worry, humans remember the sounds that filled their bodies from even before they had a language. And the elves are just like, just twirl around, you'll be fine. And he tells her that magic is like a lot the same way, that she only needs to like reach out and offer her hand and magic will come to her. So I was also beginning to realize at this part that like my favorite parts of this show take place in the land of the dragons because it's such a cool place. It's just feels so fantastical.
So magical, beautiful.
Yeah. So Chisei wonders what Elias would think if he saw all of this, and she's kneeling next to a lake looking at her reflection. And suddenly she sees Elias's reflection in the lake. And he's like, Chisei, you made a water mirror. So apparently just by wanting to see him, Lyndall's magic was able to like connect her to him through this mirror. And Chisei can tell he's pretty troubled and asks him if something's wrong. And Elias gets real for a minute and tells her like, home is a bit cold without you, even though it's summertime and I have the stove on. So it's clearly he misses her. He's trying to express that. And to cheer him up, Chisei shows him some of the beautiful flowers that have been blooming around this meadow. And she tells him she's going to tell him some things that she hasn't been able to about herself when she gets back home, since Lyndall has made it unfair because he told her a bunch of stuff about Elias. And Lyndall thinks to himself, I feel like I'm raising two children right now. About Elias and Chisei, and that's where that episode ends. But man, what a gorgeous like sequence that episode was.
Yeah, the whole scene with Lindell singing and the dancing and Chisei and the sakura blossoms. Yeah, it's great.
It could have felt really cheesy, but I felt like his singing was really good, and the animation was really great. So it came off like Disney, basically, like really good Disney film type thing.
Oh, yeah. I guess you're kind of right. So, episode 12, Better to Ask the Way Than Go Astray. It rhymes. We open with Elias starting to realize Chisei makes him feel feelings and he doesn't know what to do about it. He's basically a teenager at this point, growing up. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Chisei has finished carving her staff and Lindell takes it to put on its finishing touches. He then adds some gems that had been sitting at the bottom of a lake, absorbing sunlight and moonlight for 1,000 years, and sings his magic, infusing the staff with power. When Chisei grabs the staff, she is transported to the land in between life and the afterlife, where she talks to the dragon that turned into the tree she took the branch from. His name's Nain? Something like that?
Or Nevin, I think.
Nevin, yeah. Apparently I just mistyped. She then goes on to talk about what troubles her about Elias. Potentially, you know, she's worried he'll throw her out, just like her parents did. Because she fears he'll get bored with her. The dragon, of course, says some words that, you know, help comfort Chisei. And it's also revealed that Chisei's mother killed herself in the end when she decided she couldn't handle raising Chisei, who she didn't want.
At least that's what Nevin says. It's kind of confusing. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, keep going.
Nevin tells her to do things for herself and value herself, or else she reduces the value of those she has saved already. So I got to revisit something at this point.
Yeah.
I thought her parents sold her.
Yeah, I thought so. Well, no, I don't think so. I think she sells herself into slavery because she just feels like she's worthless. I think she ran away from home. And
I want to say there's a whole nother scene where like the parents are getting ready to give her away. Yeah. After like her mother remarried, and now
they just don't want her anymore, basically, because she has causes too many problems. I find it confusing.
I don't know exactly what happened, even though I've read the manga, because after this, Chise's parents never come up anymore.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because you'll see later in the episode she has this weird dream about her mother. But yeah.
Yeah. She snaps out of her vision, but it felt like transportation at first, having gone nowhere, and goes back home by using her new wand and some help from some flame fairies. She is engulfed by a fiery phoenix that even impresses Lindell and flies back to Elias's home. And this is a pretty cool, a little bit not drawn out, but drawn out for good reasons. Them, the animators just look like they're having a fucking ball, and some nice music going on in the background and stuff.
Yeah, they play like the theme song, and like she kind of looks a little goofy because like it's her face like sticking out of this fiery phoenix body, but it also looks really cool like at the same time. It's awesome.
Yeah, but she ends by landing in like Ellis's arms, but then she ends up falling asleep from the use of her magic and dreams a happier memory when she was with her mother.
Yeah, and it seemed like this was like a real memory she was dreaming about, but it kind of conflicted with what came up earlier between her and Nevin, because in this dream, it seemed like her mother and father loved her. So it's at this point, I was like, which one is real? I don't know.
Knew she could see these things. So like, apparently the parents eventually couldn't keep up with it and just broke down?
Or something, or maybe this anime adaptation is going to go more into it, and it's just teasing that, but we'll see.
Okay. But when she wakes, she looks outside and sees all these bug sheep flying things around. At this point, I was like, oh shit, somebody get Kino. We need to kill all of them with fire.
Oh, God damn it.
You like that?
Yeah, that was good.
I forever, from now, every time I see a sheep, will think of Kino killing sheep.
Yeah,
it's ingrained in my head now. The episode ends with Chise taking a bath and remembering all the people she has met along her journey, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, Lyndall's songs really felt like something out of a Disney film. And Chise's field trip away from Elias has taught her a lot of things. And I feel like it's shown her a path forward where she can learn to start valuing herself and finally find something that she truly wants to do beyond whatever Elias wants for her. Lyndall had a great line where he said, "Oh boy, I thought she was a quiet girl, but she might be a Wolverine," when she turns into a phoenix. And I thought that was pretty strong. Mm-hmm. And in many ways, I almost felt like the series could have ended after this episode because it was just such a good, conclusive arc for Chise. Because like when she's back at home with Elias, she feels like she's kind of on equal ground now, or like she's sort of found herself. Like she still has a long way to go, but it felt like the way she looked back on her journeys and like all of her experiences and like the new way she looks at herself, like she's definitely reborn. Like when she uses that Phoenix form to come home, it's like she was reborn as a new person, kind of. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that's what they totally did. So like you said, I think you're completely correct. If they were not going to do a second season, they could not have ended on a better episode.
For sure.
This is it's great, right? And I mean, Phoenix are known for being reborn. So
yeah, and I will say
the symbolism is. Yeah, fucking, it's wearing a badge.
It's on the nose. Yeah. I will say I like this new Chise. Like I like where her mindset is now, way more than I did at the beginning of the series. So I'm glad for that.
Oh, good. Anything else you would like to add?
Nope. That's it for now.
Cool. Blood Blockade Battlefront and Beyond, which is basically Blood Blockade's second season. Episode 11, Spectral Eyes, Phantom Vision, Part 1. Leonardo calls his sister, Michelle, and she informs him that she is on her way to the city and she is getting married. This takes a hot second to register before Leonardo starts, arguably freaking out, obviously. It causes him to lose control of his god eyes, and it's causing the people in the internet cafe to start going crazy and start blowing shit up. She is also bringing her fiance. Out of the fear that something were to happen to Michelle, it would also affect Leonardo's eyes. So Claus and Steven decide to offer their services for protection of Michelle while she is in Salem's Lot. Leonardo waits in the lobby as Zap, KK, and Zed have funny antics, and then Zap starts to notice that it looks like just about everybody they know is in the hotel lobby. He just assumes nobody else has anything better to do. There's even a shot with Chain sitting on a banister waiting. It's kind of funny because it's right behind Zap and he has no idea. So Michelle finally arrives and Leonardo rushes to her and hugs her. We are finally introduced to Michelle's fiance named Toby. Seems like a nice dude at the moment. And using his god's eyes, Leonardo can see that Toby is actually some crazy looking creature. He's actually being possessed by some crazy looking creature, and he is the only one that notices.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Leonardo excuses himself to the bathroom, and the creature catches up to him, calling himself Dr. Kamimozu, and is apparently holding Toby in a cocoon of sorts, possessing him. His objective is to survey the prosthesis of the gods scattered around the world and study them. He seems to have one god's eyes of his own. We also learned the creature that put the eyes into Leonardo is called... God, screw these words, these names. Riga El Menuhuyot. He says that the eyes have been used all out through history as cameras observing major events. Leonardo was chosen to survey Salem's Lot, since it was also a huge event for mankind. The doctor offers Leonardo revenge if he cooperates with this study. But then Zap walks up and asks if Leonardo needs him there. Apparently things are getting hot and heavy in Zap's love shack. His words. Leonardo wants him to stay, but Zap leaves before saying you can handle it because you're part of Libra. The doctor finds this fascinating. Leonardo deduces that his sister has figured out something unknown is at her back and turned to him for help. That's why she has come. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, a blood breed begins to attack the city, and Leonardo has to leave to go help. When he leaves, the doctor releases a miniature drone, basically, to follow him. Claus and Steven and Leonardo arrive at the scene and take on the blood breed gone berserk. Leonardo hesitates to use his power because he doesn't want the doctor to see how they take down a blood breed. In the end, Leonardo finally yells and texts the name to Claus, who then seals the name of the blood breed. The doctor is amazed at how Leonardo is using his eyes and says, "It's been decided. Let me possess you."
So I was really happy that this episode, or this last arc of the show, focused on Leonardo and his sister again. And I also just thought it was really cool that the god's eyes were kind of explained, that they are given to certain people throughout history to capture important events or important times in history up close. And so Leonardo was chosen to have these eyes to capture the events of Hell Salem's Lot. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's way more explanation we've had than any of the rest of this series.
Exactly.
Was in this one episode.
Thank you. Finally.
Yeah. Which I'm cool with. Like I said, this show's just, enjoy the ride because it's going to get crazy. You're going to see all kinds of cool fighting and stuff like that, you know? So episode 12, which you would have guessed, is called Spectral Eyes Phantom Vision Part 2. Leonardo gets a call from Claus checking on him because Leonardo left after the fight suddenly was over and didn't say anything to anybody. The doctor tells him to answer the call carefully and afterwards throw his phone away. So he drops it into the abyss and Sonic quickly runs by and he just gives Leonardo a nice old slap. The doctor didn't seem to notice and Leonardo decides to test him. Leonardo realizes that the device that's following him, the stupid drone, doesn't have the power of the all-seeing eye, and now he knows he can use that to his advantage, so that's why he didn't see Sonic. Leonardo walks into an alley saying it's a shortcut, and using his ability to be mugged very easily, he gets mugged and uses his eyes to mess with their vision and run off. The doctor then catches back up with him, and they hail a cab. Claus and Steven realize it's strange of Leonardo to just leave like that. And then while Claus is looking at his phone, he sees there's more to the message that Leonardo sent and scrolls down to find a code. Claus immediately has Steven inform the entire division they have a problem. So what he'd done, he had texted the message, and then he had just done like enter all the way farther down the page, and then entered the code, which is basically the code for shit's going down, I need backup.
Yeah.
Leonardo gets back to the hotel and goes to Michelle's room to find it has been transformed into the lake that we always see him reminisce about back home with him and Michelle. Leonardo charges the doctor and binds 2 of his limbs with the chain he took from the thugs earlier. Leonardo has figured out the doctor is very light and his actions are done completely through his vision. The doctor then notices that everybody is coming back to the hotel and can't figure out how they knew to do this. The doctor says time for emergency surgery and disconnects from Toby and slices up Leonardo a couple times. They continue a little bit of fighting that has the doctor panting. He's kind of a weak person, but whatever. Leonardo runs his eyes at full blast to temporarily override the doctor's vision and give him an advantage. But if he keeps that for too long, he will fry his own brain. Michelle wakes up and the doctor uses her as a hostage, but she crashes into the doctor and yells for Leonardo to run. Instead, Leonardo rushes in and headbutts the doctor multiple times and cracks his all-seeing eye. Then throws him across the room and the illusion of the lake changes back to the hotel room. The doctor charges and Leonardo defends his sister with the bottle and chain. He got like a Tennessee whiskey bottle at some point. He then kind of blacks out and sees his life flash before his eyes. And then Leonardo comes to and initially lets the doctor blades get stuck into him so he can push him out the window. But before the doctor can finish Leonardo off, the rest of the crew shows up and Klaus wrecks the doctor easily. Michelle and her fiance have been sent back and Leonardo eventually comes to in the hospital. When he does, Klaus gives him a really encouraging speech. Then things quickly go back to the usual as that Fempt guy unleashes his beast on the city as per usual, which is more of a season 1 thing.
I was just like laughing about it maniacally. I was like, oh, this reminds me of season 1.
Yep, exactly.
There was a great insert song at the beginning of this episode, I thought, and I also really liked the music during the final confrontation between Leonardo and like this evil bastard. And like,
it was good.
Just like, I thought like the scene where like Leonardo's sister like jumps out of her like wheelchair to like tackle this guy to let Leonardo survive. And then like Leonardo like runs up to him and just like headbutts the shit out of him. Like all of that like had such good weight to it in the animation. It just came through so strong. Like,
I felt like it really sucked you in. You're just like, oh my God, on the inside, you know?
Yeah, I was like hooked for sure. Like that was this little 2-episode arc, maybe my favorite 2 episodes of this season. They were so damn good. But yeah.
Ooh. I would agree with you. I would only argue maybe some of the episodes that focused on Chain Chain or KK because
KK was good too. Yeah.
They didn't get much love season 1, but season 2 they got paid their dues. So
for sure.
Really happy with that because those are the only other badass women I can think of is Levy and Baraka from Black Lagoon.
You tried really hard to pronounce that name.
You pronounce that name.
I need to go look it up because I haven't watched Black Lagoon in a while, but I'll get back to you.
It's hard. Did you look up the Columbus, Indiana chaos?
Yeah, I did actually. It's a pretty
so I did a quick Google
thing.
search, and yeah, it's cool, but it's called chaos for a reason.
Yeah, I thought that thing in Girls Last Tour was like maybe like a clock or like, but it definitely looked like modern art. Like first I was like, oh, maybe it's like a solar panel. And I was like, maybe it's a clock. And then maybe it's just modern art.
That's why when I looked at it, I immediately thought of that sculpture. And I was like, it's the same thing. It looks like it doesn't really have a purpose. It's just like an artsy quote thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Ooh, excuse me. So, Land of the Lustrous. Beacon, make sure I pronounce it right.
You got it.
Lustrous or lustrous, which both have the same definition.
Except lustrous isn't a word.
Yeah, it is.
It's really not, though.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I went to dictionary.com and it said, were you looking for illustrious?
I don't know. I wonder where it came from then, because like you said, you heard other podcasts making that mistake.
To be fair, I saw other. Well, I think a lot of people are confusing it with the word illustrious instead of just lustrous. But also, I did Google it, and like lustrous seems to have been a word at some point, maybe, or is sometimes used. Maybe it's like a British thing. I don't know. But
yeah, it's probably some kind of slang or weird translation. Okay.
Isn't her name Balalaika from Black Lagoon?
Yeah. It's supposed to be Russian. It's hard. Or you could just call her Scarface. Doesn't matter.
That's true. That helps.
She's still fucking hot as shit. Oh, God.
Anyway, Land of the Lustrous.
Anyways, episode 11. Let's get back on track here. Secrets, our last show of this season. Bort is pissed and turns around and take on the special Lunarians. But whenever she slices them, they just split up again. Foss gets in a shoving match with one and asks Alex to slice it while she holds it. Alex says she's not even supposed to look at the Lunarians because Sensei said so. Foss is just pleading with her, and when she finally does, her hair changes to red and she gets like yandere crazy on us. Dude. Yeah. It's crazy, like Miri Nakai crazy. It's pretty funny. But then Bort shows up and says, the red Alex. She gets crazy when she's around Lunarians. This time, when the Lunarians multiply, it turns into like harmless little dog things, like little Pomeranians. They're just pointless.
Pomeranian's a good way to put it. That's funny.
Yeah. Have you seen, what is it? Pomsky?
I think I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah. It's basically a Pomeranian, but it's colored like a husky.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
When I went to Hawaii on vacation, we ran into one at the skydiving place. So they're kind of. I don't really like little dogs, but they're kind of cool because they look cool.
That's cool.
But anyways, all these little guys are running around everywhere, and all the gyms scrambled to catch them and put them in a cage, which turns out to be a bad idea because they just formed back into the one giant one. But also, a side note, it's still missing a hand, so some of these dogs have not been collected yet. After a brief fight, Sensei shows up, and both him and the creature get a look of surprise on their faces. The creature then rushes to attack Sensei, and instead, Sensei commands it like a dog and calls it Shiro. It's like, sit, and it just sits. Only Foss hears this, and she asks Sensei if he knows this Lunarian. He just says no, and nods it off, which is clearly he knows something about this Lunarian. You have a theory about this specific Lunarian? And I want to say might be bullshit because he calls it Shiro.
Yeah, so he calls it Shiro, and my theory is that Shiro might be Antarcticite, but like brought back, and like Shiro means white in Japanese, right? So Antarcticite is like white. Wait, what?
Like the other special Lunarians.
Wait, what are you saying? Sorry, I heard. I talked over you, so I didn't hear what you said.
I said okay, so later on when it disappears, the gem should have been left behind if it just like all the other special Lunarians.
Yeah, very possibly. So the whole thing is like we don't know what happens to the gems once they get taken to the moon where the Lunarians are. Like, so I just got some indications that this might be someone like who shared a relationship with Sensei, like Antarcticite. Like, especially since everyone else was usually asleep while Antarcticite was like doing her patrols. Like, it's possible that his like pet nickname for her was Shiro, that only she knew, or something like that, you know?
I don't buy that at all.
I don't know. Like, so I was reaching there. I was like, that would be interesting if like some of the gems come back as these monsters. I think it's more to solidify
he has some type of special connection with the Lunarians. Like, he may have been one at once,
could
or
be.
He is actually the last human that's. So he knows. So it means he's connected to everything.
Yeah.
Since we know they split off. But anyways, Foss goes on a walk and tries to figure out the connection between Sensei and the Lunarians. She ends up running into Cinnabar, and she has one of the little dogs with her, so that's the missing hand. Foss tells Cinnabar that she thinks Sensei is hiding something from them, and Cinnabar says everybody already knows that, but they have all agreed to trust Sensei regardless. So Foss goes back to find most of the gems sleeping in the giant Lunarian's fur without fear. Foss is about to wake up Sensei to ask if he's hiding something, but she sees a vision of Antarcticite, which shushes her to stay quiet for now.
Yeah.
Why did you think that was important?
Because it also lends to my theory that, first of all, Antarcticite at least is definitely trying to protect her in that moment. And say, don't talk to Sensei right now because it will be bad if you do.
I just think it's memory. Every time Antarcticite comes up, I think it's just memories of False because she idolized Antarcticite so much. She looked so much up to her. Yeah. She thinks she's even greater than Bort, who's supposed to be the greatest gem of them all.
But also just the fact that she sees Shiro and Sensei together, and then she sees a dream image of Antarcticite telling her not to talk to Sensei. I thought there was something there. We'll see. I don't know. Hopefully there's going to be a season 2 of this show.
Oh, God, I hope there's a season 2. Yeah. I need answers.
Yeah.
The Lunarian then curls itself around Sensei and turns to dust. To dust. Wow. Thanks, tongue. Betray me like that. Sensei explains it as just saying it has found peace. He then asks Foss how it was teaming with the Bort. She says she's very wise and everybody should team up with her at least once to learn from her. Foss then decides she will find answers by asking Lunarian herself if she has to. So Foss has been apparently waiting 10 days for the Lunarians to show up, and Rutile stops by on her way to the court shore. She tells Foss that since the last appearance was something special, there may be something going on their end. Rutile continues on, and Foss thinks she must be gathering parts for freaking names. Podparadsha. Podparadsha.
Just call her Poppy.
Poppy. Mary Poppins, y'all. She was really cool and knew almost everything, apparently. She's also once fought beside Rutile, who doesn't seem to fight anymore. She has a hardness of 9 and is the second strongest after Bort. She's also almost as old as Yellow, who is the oldest, and she was born with holes in her body. Rutile might have modified her by filling her holes with gems from the quartz shore, but for whatever reason, it's not working anymore. And Foss had actually found some ruby during the winter and gives it to Rutile to help try on her, since it's also red and has a hardness of 9. It might work, and it does, and she opens her eyes. The end.
I thought there were some really funny, cute moments in this episode. Foss is really surprised because even Bort can't bring herself to swing her sword at these cute little puppy Lunarian things.
It was cute.
But meanwhile, she goes to Rutile, and Rutile is oh yeah, I immediately dissected them to see what would happen. And there's 2 of them. And then Diamond, she was asleep through all of this because she was recovering from her injuries. And she missed out on these cute fluffy doggies, so all the other girls feel bad for her. So they made these little puffy replicas of the dogs, so Diamond could play with them.
And then it became the new craze.
Yeah. There's an interesting scene where the Lunarian picks Obsidian, one of the girls, up by her feet. And Obsidian says, "You perv," you etchy. And she's holding her skirt up to keep it from falling down. And this wouldn't be interesting except for that, they're gems. So, do they have genitalia, in any sense?
Well, also, they wear shorts. So why was she in a skirt?
I don't know. Well, some of them kind of seem to wear mini skirts, and then it's just do they have this leftover instinct of modesty because they're descended from humans, or are they actually human in their form? Who knows? I don't know. That question will most likely never be answered. But yeah,
but like you said, we know they're in some way descended from humans, so it would make sense that they had some type of modesty. You would think a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And then Alexandrite, who can change from green to a reddish color, that's true of the rock Alexandrite, which when you view Alexandrite in different types of light, it looks like different colors. So if you view it in daylight, it looks green because of the blue and green light from the atmosphere or whatever. But if you view it in candlelight, which has a lot more red color, the rock appears to be red. So it's pretty cool.
So basically it acts sort of like a mirror and just reflects the light around it.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so on to the final episode. So episode 12 called New Work. Podparacha awakens and Rutile tells her she's been asleep for 231 years, 11 months, and 1 day. Even so, her hair still looks fabulous. Rutile is definitely a little jealous when Foss gets like a head pat that she really, really seemed to want. She like Rutile is telling her, I like operated on you like 300,000 times or something. But it was only because I was so stupid that you didn't come back before this. But Podparacha is just like shrugs it off and she's like, that's just my luck. Foss, though, is really eager to ask her questions, so they go out on a walk together. And you can tell that Podparacha is definitely like the laid-back sort of delinquent type. And she asks Foss about herself, and Foss tells her, yeah, I'm pretty much a bit of a troublemaker. But she tells Podparacha, like, my goal is to talk to a Lunarian to find out the truth about everything. And as sort of like an analogy, Podparacha says that she wants to put an end to Rutile's like endless puzzle of putting her back together, and that it would remove that burden for Rutile. But in the case of what Foss is trying to ask, like removing that burden and discovering the truth may lead to unexpected changes in how they view the entire world. So she should be careful about asking and keep her composure. And then right after she gives this like great advice, she just faints again, like literally minutes after she came back to life. So meanwhile, Zircon is the newest partner for Bort and has a rough first day where Bort kind of completely ignores them on patrol. And Zircon goes to Foss for advice and says, like, I'm thinking like I need to grow up just like you and maybe I'll cut off some arms or legs. And Foss is like, please don't be a psychopath. And just tells her, be confident. And also think, like Foss thinks about the way that she used to be before she went through this transformation. And she's jealous of how she was like always spoiled and unthinking and how easy that way of living was. But now that she has this new way of thinking and like new maturity, it's much harder for her to just go on. Meanwhile, Bort tells Zircon that her biggest weakness is Yellow Diamond and her constant fear of losing her specifically. And Bort tells Zircon, you don't have to worry about that stuff with me because I'm ridiculously strong. And all you need to do is just give it everything you've got. And then once you do that, I'll give you more advice. So Yellow Diamond, meanwhile, comes to chat with Podparacha, but finds that she's still passed out. And Rutile asks if this is like a gathering of the senile. And Yellow Diamond like starts chasing her around for calling her old. And she thinks that Zircon being matched up with Bort is a suitable matchup, but also finds some time alone with the slumbering Podparacha to ask if she agrees because she's tired from how long she's thought about this because she's been thinking about it seriously for a very long time. But she seems to have finally come to peace with the idea that Zircon being together with Bort will be good for both of them. Foss goes to Oh, what'd you say?
Real quick, have we had much interaction with Yellow yet?
Not a ton, except to know that she's like the oldest.
Yeah, I think she's only been mentioned. I want to say this is possibly her first appearance.
Like we've seen her, I think, but like not in an important way before now, really. Okay. Foss goes up to Alexandrite and says she wants to restudy everything about the Lunarians from the ground up. Because Foss can barely remember anything that Sensei taught her when she was littler. And she remembers back to this scene of like one-on-one studies with Sensei and like one of the other, like a bunch of the other girls come peek at her and they're like, oh, she's so cute. And
she's like a little lolly form. So like apparently they start out as like little lollies and then they slowly evolve to what they are now and then they stop aging.
They start as children, Leo, not lollies. God damn it.
Oh, God damn it. You see what anime has done to me?
Anime has corrupted your soul.
Oh, God. My soul is corrupted.
Anyway, so one of the girls asks, is that one gonna fight Sensei? And Sensei is like, it's way too soon to say about Foss, but she does certainly have a kind heart. But Foss's teaching involves Alexandrite just grilling her with trivia about the Lunarians, and eventually Alex gets tired of answering some of Foss's own trivia questions, and Foss gets a chance to ask Alexandrite if she thinks it's possible to communicate with Lunarians. And she says they don't have enough data to know for sure, but the reason Alexandrite studies them so closely is like as a means of trying to overcome her condition of psychosis that she goes into when she sees them, when she turns red. And because just before Foss was born, the Lunarians stole someone named Chrysoberyl away from her. And so Chrysoberyl is the type of rock that like Alexandrite is. So I don't know in this sense if Chrysoberyl is like a separate gem from Alexandrite, or Chrysoberyl was like something inside of Alexandrite that was stolen away by the Lunarians. I guess we'll find out later, but she never wants to forget that fresh feeling of hatred that she has for the Lunarians. So that's why she studies them. On Foss's next patrol, she's attacked by Lunarians, and she forgot her sword this time, but she decides to still board the platform, and she is able to trap one of the archers inside a ball of her liquid gold. And she sort of chokes it by the neck and asks it, "Do you understand the words that I'm speaking?" And then like eerily, the pupils in this Lunarian's eyes like roll back from the top of her eyeballs into the center. Like it actually can like sense that it's talking to her, or that Foss is talking to her. And it sort of breathes the first syllable of a word, but it all that comes out is just like an F sound, like a F. So no idea what that means. And then at that point, Cinnabar arrives and like she thinks Foss is in trouble, so she defeats all the Lunarians and even kills the one that she was trying to talk to. And Foss doesn't want to let go what she was trying to do, so she just thanks Cinnabar for the save, basically.
Yeah.
But this all reminds her that like her original goal was to find new work for Cinnabar. And so Cinnabar like wakes up that night on patrol, and we briefly see that she has some papers just like lying around in her cave, probably indicating that she's like trying to study the history of the Lunarians herself and figure out the truth. And she comes up to the surface and she sees Foss standing there, and she immediately starts running away because she's like, "I sense some like foreboding in you." But Foss like finally catches up and tells her, "I have a job for you. I found a job, and it's something that only you can do." And Cinnabar is really shocked at first, but then she asks like, "Well, what about the better part? You said it was supposed to be a better part, a job than the night watch." And Foss is like, "Probably won't be any better. I'm sorry about that, but the job is uncovering the truth about Sensei." And Cinnabar's like, "Yeah, that'll be way worse." And she's like, "I know, but hear me out." So Cinnabar asks like, "What plans do you have? Like, say we discover that Sensei has done the unthinkable. What do you plan to do? If you haven't thought that far ahead, then I'm not going to join you." And Foss basically says, "See, that's exactly why I need you. You're the clever one who thinks ahead, and I need you by my side." So Foss then starts to walk away, and she kind of gives this dramatic monologue to the camera as if she's talking to us, where she's like literally speaking out loud, which is kind of weird. You would think she would just be thinking this, but she just states like all of her plans for the future and finding out the truth. And then Cinnabar tells herself that she wants to be free of the night, but feels nothing but distrust for Foss and everybody else around her. But regardless, she comes back to Foss and she says, "I guess if we team up, it wouldn't be the worst thing," or something like that. And so just to end the episode, we get a brief montage of sort of moe scenes between the various gems. And then the episode closes on this really great sequence of Foss being called back to Sensei to talk with him. And she walks past like a vision of herself, the one that used to operate on simple hunches, and that she's really jealous. She wishes she could go back to that in some sense. But Sensei is about to tell her something, and she thinks of the words that Podparach had said to stay prudent in her actions and to trust herself. And then Sensei inhales to speak, and they cut to credits on that cliffhanger.
Oh God, what a fucking cliffhanger!
Yeah, I can't wait for season 2.
But they ended this like they already know they have a season 2.
They must know they have a season 2, like 100%. Like they ended this so confidently that I would be shocked at any other outcome. So yeah,
and I feel like it was popular enough that like they will have a season 2.
Yeah, I was looking at like volume 1 Blu-ray sales, and it sold like over 6,000 copies, which is not like amazing, but not bad either. Like it's definitely good enough to get a second season. So I hope that continues. So
nice. I also want to add, Alex is turning into one of my favorites.
Alex is pretty cool. Yeah. And an interesting character because they're like researching the Lunarians and stuff as well. So
yeah, like when she snaps and goes all goofy loopy, it's I'm just like, you're awesome. I'm pretty on board with this. Anything else you would like to add to Land of the Lustrous, Becom?
Just that it is gorgeous, and the animation in these last 2 episodes was continued to be amazing. I just love everything about this show, basically. And I thought I want to know more, but like I thought we got like enough of a tease to like keep me going until season 2 about what's really going on.
Oh yeah, the first episode of season 2 drops. Don't be surprised if I'm there the exact same hour it drops.
Yeah, exactly. Just can't wait. I don't think I'm going to read the manga though, because visually the anime adds so much. So.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not. Is it a manga?
It is a manga. Yeah. So you could go read ahead if you wanted to. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm not going to. I'm going to wait for season 2. It's just way too good. Like I said with Girls Last Tour, if they do season 2, I gotta watch it. I don't want to read it. It's too visually stunning. Oh man. So are you ready? Is everybody ready for some final season scores for all the shows we reviewed?
We made it through. We finally made it all the way through 2017.
Yep. The year is done. We are now in 2018.
And it's a little bit better, I feel like. It's like slightly better than last year so far.
I wouldn't say that. I think winter's looking a little rough.
All right.
But start it.
All right, so let's get into the final scores for each of these 10 shows we decided to follow this past season. So starting with Anime-Gataris, I'll just say that series was so much fun for me. Like, I just enjoyed all of the meta references in this show. And more than like in other shows that I've had to try to do like meta references here and there, like this one embraced the meta. And especially in those last 2 episodes where it just went batshit.
I mean, like the synopsis should be, this show is meta. Then it goes on.
But it's also like I feel I was talking with my friend Andrew about this, and he was saying like this anime is a pretty good episode if you want to introduce somebody new to anime, to show them like what anime is all about and like a little bit about the current fandom of anime, because possibly
and also why we love anime.
Exactly, because Manoa is like a stand-in for somebody who doesn't know much about anime, and then all of these people tell her like the various reasons that anime is important to them that develop over the course of the season. And then, you know, the last 2 episodes come, and that's just batshit. But I mean, hey, I feel like those 2 episodes prepare you for the ending of Evangelion in a way.
I was going to say that will prepare you for the rest of anime when they just do batshit crazy things.
Like that is a very anime thing to have happen. So I ended up giving this an 8 out of 10. I just really enjoyed all of it. It was so much fun.
Yeah. So I also ended up giving it an 8 out of 10 because it's super meta, and it's just really cool how I also feel like it's an anime made for anime fans.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if it would be a good anime to show people, you know, like why anime is so great. I still feel like as an anime fan, I took so much more from it because I'm just sitting there going, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I can't believe you said that. That's right. I mean, and you can easily tell everybody working on this project is, you would assume as an anime fan, but they definitely were. They knew the shit they were talking about.
For sure.
Okay.
So moving on to the next one, why don't you start off?
So, Juuni Taisen, I give it a 5 out of 10. It's right down the middle, even though it did a lot of bad stuff, but it still kept itself interesting enough to keep me wanting to watch it to the end. If you do that, then I feel like I can't put you in a negative because you've hooked me.
Yeah.
You know, some of the animation was awful at times, and I questioned some of the writing ideas behind it.
Yeah.
But like I said, since I wanted to see the end, I wanted to see who won, I could not give it a 4 because of that. So that's why it gets a 5. It's straight down the middle. If you want to watch it and you like killing games and stuff like that, then it's a decent killing game one, I would say. I don't think I've seen too many others, but
definitely better than Osama game from last season.
Oh God, I heard so much bad stuff.
That one is real dumb, but yeah.
So yeah, I can't say it's bad and I can't say it's good. It's right down the middle. What do you think, BCom?
Yeah, I went a little lower. I just gave it a 4, just because I think I probably would have stopped watching this at a certain point, like probably around the Snake and Dragon arc.
I wouldn't blame you.
And maybe we just like heard like from other people how if it got better by the end, like that's probably where I would have dropped off. But yeah, like the animation just disappointed me like 95% of the time after episode 1. Like I pointed out a few scenes that I thought were good, but man, it was really rough the rest of the time.
Oh, we talked about how like it has maybe one of the best episodes of episode 1s we've ever seen.
It's so good. Yeah.
Like we were both so fucking sold on this show, and then it was just nothing but a downhill fucking struggle from there.
And that's the thing about making a really good first episode is like you set your expectations for your audience really high. So then there's going to be inevitable disappointment when you don't live up to it. And I also just felt like the series was like determined not to have fun with its premise and stick to this like Zodiac story instead, and like do these long backstories of every character that like some of them were okay and some of them were not.
I've never really liked backstories in any anime.
Yeah.
So if maybe they had kept the backstories to maybe 5 minutes an episode, like I think Boar's was done very well.
Yeah, it was. The first episode. It was surprising too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like everybody else was okay, but man, Snake and Dragons was awful.
Yeah, I liked Tiger and Ox. They were good. Rat was kind of interesting at the end. Like philosophically, I like the character of Rat.
Yeah. But like even Sheep's backstory, I think I would have given a 6 out of a 10.
Yeah, and then they immediately kill him off. And I liked Monkey too. Like I liked Monkey as a character, but they immediately kill her off. So it's like, oh well. Interesting. Anyway, so yeah, it was a little below average for me just because like it failed in so many different like little execution areas, but it was still fun enough to watch that I could recommend it to certain people.
Oh yeah, I mean there's probably a certain group for this, but so I think it's enough said about that one. How about you take the next one?
Yeah, just because. So I found the direction of this show to be like really subtle and well done for the beginning episodes, like almost up to like the very middle of the show. And then in the middle, I thought it started to get a little bit bogged down in some like really unrealistic misunderstanding drama where characters would show up in the exact right place at the exact wrong time to hear something that would stunt their growth, basically. So that felt a little bit like Gamers, which came from the same studio just like a season before. And it started to stretch my believability a bit of the show. But still, like there were so many like little good moments between the characters building up. But then the last episode was just a disaster for me, for all the reasons I stated in the review before. And like I think heading into that, the show could have still been maybe like an 8, maybe a 7. But it took a hard hit from that bad ending and brought me all the way down to a 5, where it's just like I think there are a lot of good things to take away from the way the show is constructed. But in the end, it just killed all of that for me. So just right down the middle somewhere.
Earlier today, I was thinking you had one big complaint because there was a scene that was like exactly like Tsukigakure.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you check and see which source material was first?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll check that while you talk about it.
Yeah. So I gave it a 4 out of 10. Most of you know I don't care for romances, but basically it's boring. I don't want to relive high school again, which is what I felt like this anime was kind of doing. It's boring, and Anna is best girl by far.
Anna is definitely
She's
best
awesome.
girl.
I wish I could meet a girl like her in real life.
So hold on. So I think so Tsukigakure would be first because they're actually both originals, original anime, and Tsukigakure came first.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
But I mean, like they came out. I don't know. They came out close enough to each other that like just because could have been in the planning stages, but still they probably would have seen Tsukigakure.
Yeah, well, there's this thing in media where like everybody comes up with the same idea at the same time.
Yeah.
There's like a reason why we got like 3 different asteroid movies one year and like shit like that. So like that's if you go to crack.com, they have a really good article about it. Yeah, it's just society makes us everybody thinking the same things at the same time. So having one anime and then next season another anime, and they both do 2 seasons the exact same is absolutely not surprising at all.
Oh, I have like 2 more things to say about that show also. Just like the animation was really rough throughout, and apparently they were up against a really rough schedule, the animators. Like they had a bunch of delays of this show as it was going on, and like there was like apparently some stuff going on with the studio that they were having tons of trouble getting these episodes out. But still, like the final product like was very uneven at times. But they should really pay the background artists more money because they did their job. They did their job real well. But also just the character of Ada, I didn't complain about him enough. Like I'm so upset at him. Like he just...
That's okay. I complained for you.
It's true. You complained enough for me like the whole series. But like, God, man, just so disappointing as a lead romance character to just like not do anything and then just have these 2 girls basically like tumble over themselves to try to go out with him. It's pretty annoying.
You take it a little personally, don't you?
No, well, I feel bad for Aina specifically because she did. God damn it. I'm so angry. I can't go into it anymore. Let's move on. So you start off with this one, I think. Yeah.
All right. Inuyashiki, The Last Hero. I give it a 6 out of 10. The show is just above average, but it's not great.
Okay.
I love the way it was animated. I think the CG was pretty much on par with Land of the Lustrous. And I love the crazy stuff that happened, especially the first half. Like they really explored like how messed up people can be in the head. There was a lot of questionable choices towards the end, but overall good enough. I got to give it a positive score. So it stays a 6 out of 10.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I think you probably had a higher score earlier on. And then like, because I remember you really liked it at the beginning.
I was up in 8 and 9 between episode 1 and 5.
So I was kind of the opposite. Like I was really low around like 3 early on because I really hated those early episodes. But then
I don't know why the writing and the character development was like so freaking phenomenal that made you love or hate somebody so freaking quickly.
When you need to drown a baby to make your villain scary, I don't give a shit.
I have never really felt so strongly about the characters in most other anime, so like I had to give it credit.
So by the end though, I thought it was just like slightly below average. I really grew to enjoy Ichirou's character throughout the series. But this author clearly has issues with humanity and wants to see the worst in everyone. Like that shit with like the girls on the street, like the day after like a terrorist attack, essentially like talking about how cute the terrorist is, felt so at ends with reality that I was just like, this is so dumb. Like,
and we argue this with people. They're like, groupies are a thing. And I'm like, yeah, groupies are a thing. But like, this was like boy band status when I was back in middle school, early high school.
Yeah.
Like this was like majority of girls. Like that's not cool.
Yeah. And it's like, these are police officers he killed. Like the people who are supposed to be protecting them. And he slaughtered like 85 police officers. And then they're just like, oh, he's such a cool guy. He's so hot. It's like,
he's
no.
so cute.
I
don't care who he murders.
I really wanted more interaction between Ichirou and his daughter or his son before the end to give it a little bit more emotional heft, or his wife too. Like we really only saw that setup episode in the first episode.
I feel like they did an okay enough amount with the daughter.
Yeah, the daughter got the most for sure.
The wife and the wife wasn't good, and the son was just like completely non-existent.
Yeah, until that last episode. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're suddenly just supposed to care. So like earlier on, it made you love and hate characters quickly. And then at the last half, it just, he forgot how to do that, I feel like.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Though, like, I think that short scene with him talking to his wife about his honeymoon was another example of like him making you care a lot in a very short time. That actually worked for me, for sure.
Okay.
But
yeah. That was. I'll agree with you. That one was pretty decent, but I am actually surprised by your score on the next show.
Well, I didn't give my show on Inuyashiki. It's a 4 out of 10, so just below average, I would say. Yeah, I which came up honestly from where I thought it was going to land. So yeah, in the end, it was all right.
Oh my god.
Okay, yeah. The next show, I'll start off. Recovery of an MMO Junkie. The show was really good, and especially when it was poking fun at MMO relationships in a way that seemed really authentic to people in real life. What I didn't like as much was that the two adults have the same exact type of romance that like two middle schoolers would have in Tsukigakure or something. In fact, the middle schoolers in Tsukigakure went further than these adults did ever. Like
well, okay, so I've have told you that I feel like the romance between the people in Tsukigakure don't make any fucking sense. It's unrealistic to me.
Yeah.
But these two's relationship are fucking spot on for two people who have had no relationships up to this point.
I guess so. Yeah. They're both like children when it comes to relationships. Exactly. But like when he's on top of her on the couch, I'm like, they would kiss in this moment. They wouldn't just like get interrupted by the doorbell. I don't know. Whatever. They would kiss while the doorbell was going off. They might have.
You don't know. The doorbell interrupts them.
Oh, damn it. But anyway, like, I can get this kind of thing from like another like high school or middle school romance anime, which is why like when you have characters, I was so excited at the beginning of the season for having like a 30-year-old main character who's a woman. Like that's so rare in anime. And so to just have it end up in like a loosey-goosey, like middle school, like cutesy style makes sense for their characters. But I wish it had been more mature about the way it went around it.
You're asking for a different show.
Basically, I was asking for a different show. But still, I gave the show a 6 out of 10 in the end, which is a little bit low. I assume, like, I think a lot of people like the show more than that. But for me, I wanted something different out of this than what I got in the end. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you just want a different show is what I think. So I'll keep it simple. It's one of my favorite romances of all time. And the OP is fucking awesome. So I give it an 8 out of 10.
It is, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think that's the score I've been seeing a lot of people give this show. And I think that's fair.
If you want me to fault it, I don't really have... Maybe it dragged at a point or two.
Yeah.
That's really all I can give it. It never did really anything like great.
Yeah.
But... I don't think it really did anything wrong either.
Yeah, so. I would say that's another, like a fault, I could say. Like, it never did anything to, like, really, like, blow me away. The closest it came was the scene where Yuta tells Homare on the phone, like, I'm glad you're not here to see how gorgeous she looks right now. Like, that was a good damn line. And they come back to that line in, like, the later episodes, too. So, yeah. But
okay.
Beyond that, okay. It's just...
I'll take the next one.
Sure, go for it.
Good? Kino's Journey, The Beautiful World.
Bah.
Bah. Bah. And then the sound of fire in the background. I thought it did have a couple of decent episodes, but overall, I kind of didn't think it was that great. And then, especially that final episode, there were 10 entire minutes of sleep slaughter. I can't even say it. 10 minutes of sheep slaughter. Just really? It gets an easy 4 out of 10. This is the Kino's Journey, The Beautiful World is not that great. Especially when it's right next to Girls Last Tour for this season.
Yeah.
Which can be arguably very similar shows. It just gets stomped on. So
it does.
I wouldn't recommend it. From what I've heard, definitely go watch the second season.
The original series, yeah.
The original, sorry.
So, that's what I did, like, right before fall season started. I binged through that show, and it was such a great experience. And unfortunately, it made this one just, like, kind of pale in comparison because of so many different reasons. Just, like, the direction, the quality of the stories that were in that original compared to this one. And also just, like, the sound direction was so good in that original show. I thought the animation was pretty good in the show. Like the CGI motorcycle was fine for the most part. Kino looked good. Like the characters looked good. Background art looked fine for the most part. And I would say this show is still better than a lot of the crappy anime that come out. Like it makes you think at least. Like maybe not the sheep episode. It makes you think about different things, that sheep episode. But like a couple of the episodes along the way did hit and made for good discussion and like good things to think about. But man, it just, I can't give it anything above a 5 because I just felt it was like very average in the end.
I actually, since you had just watched the original, I'm surprised you didn't rate it lower.
Yeah.
Since it was, since you compared them immediately.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you gave it the 5 because you felt the original was so good.
Yeah, I did.
Like you can't just shit on the new one.
Yeah, I'm trying to remain like as impartial as I can. Like if I was being emotional about it, like as like a Kino fan, I would probably rate it lower. But like as just like an anime series compared to like what else is coming out and what else has come out recently, I still think it's like an average show. That I could recommend to somebody and they might get something out of it. And then I could tell them, by the way, go watch the original because it has like a 2-part Coliseum episode and it's dope. So do that.
And it puts the episodes in order.
Yeah. Just little touches like that help as well. All right. Moving on to the show we did like, though, that was about girls on a tank riding around. Girls Last Tour.
Oh, that was my lock too, so suck it.
Good lock. Good lock. I really enjoyed the artistic vision for this show. It just like looked gorgeous at all times. It sounded gorgeous at all times. Just like hats off to them for making something like that really transports you into another world, even like just a weird one, and just makes you feel like you're there. I definitely felt that some of the episodes like were better than others. Like, of course, the episode where they discover music was basically my favorite. The one about the meaning of life, the robots near the end, was really great. And I loved the final episode, like getting to learn about the history of the world, which you don't always get to do in like a slice of life post-apocalyptic anime like this. So, I don't know if they're going to make a second season. Like nothing's been announced yet, but there is more manga, I believe. But it had like such a solid ending anyway that I wouldn't be crushed if they don't make more. I probably would be happy to go read the manga, but I would love to have this studio work on more of this because they did such a good job. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Nice. So what stopped you from giving it a 9?
So just because some episodes felt more like just slice of life and less about like real tangible philosophy that I could like hold on to. So I just found myself like certain episodes being kind of bored. While other ones I was like, oh, that's a really cool take on that philosophy.
I never felt bored watching this.
That's good. I know a lot of people didn't. Like a lot of people think this is like top 5 show of the year, and it might be close to that for me, even all said and done. But yeah,
and I know I've told you like they could just do an entire episode of them just like traveling in their motorrad, and I'm sorry, Ketorad, Ketocrad or something. I don't know. Ketocrad. Yeah. And I would be totally okay with that episode because the backgrounds are so fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I found everything about this show amazing. If you like philosophy, it's got it. If you want comedy, it's got it. Mm-hmm. If you want gorgeous backgrounds and good music, it's got plenty of that also. Not to mention, Chito and Yuri have some of the best dynamics together I've seen in any anime. I honestly don't think anybody can beat them out. Also, they're both so absolutely precious. And before I give my final score, you may be like, well, you complained about the bath scene. Well, you know, we let Ghibli, who most people consider the epitome of the best anime, well, even they have a bath scene with naked girls or naked young girls. So I'm making it a rule of thumb. You know, we're different. Speaking from an American's perspective to a Japanese perspective, we're different cultures, and Japanese culture grows up. You know, they go to the bathhouses together. They see lots of naked people and whatnot. That I'm going at this point give every anime, they get their one scene of that.
Yeah.
So just one. Depending on the perspectives, if the like camera shots are straight cleavage or ass, then you're fucking out.
Yeah, these were such like muted perspectives. They did not feel sexualized to me. Yeah, and I've seen a lot of shitty anime that do that. So yeah.
So they had their one. There were like other ones, but they were nowhere near compared to this. But like they were just like, we're going to take a bath, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then you got like very vague silhouettes. So they had the one that was like episode 10-ish, I think. Yeah, 10 or 9.
In the pool. Yeah, the aquarium.
So it that one gets my pass. So it gets a pass. So I give this show a 10 out of 10. Woo. I think it's a fucking masterpiece.
Awesome.
It is great.
We found the Inuyashiki slice of life show that Leo loves. All right. You start off with the next one then.
All right. So the Ancient Magus Bride. As I've said before, when I've read the manga, I have a tough time enjoying it again, except for One Punch Man, which was, it blew me away how well they animated that stinking show. It was so stinking good. So I'm giving this score an asterisk next to it, since I don't feel like I can judge it fairly. So I will give it a 6 out of 10, which is just above average. So it's in the positive. So that's my take.
Yeah, for me, my score is also going to have an asterisk, just because it's, it's halfway through the series. Like, so we're doing like a mid-season review basically. And for me, of course, I can't ignore the issues that I had with the setup of this series, and I've talked about them like to death. But there's still a ton that I like about this show. I wish that Chise and Elias' relationship hadn't been set up as like a master and slave, but instead as like a teacher and his apprentice or something. I just feel so much more comfortable with it that way. Wait, what?
It's kind of a blend.
It is a blend, but like, so I don't think it ever had to start off as the slave thing. Like, I just feel like that's part of the series that like was part of the initial construction of this that just didn't necessarily need to be part of it. I don't know. It kind of feels like shock value that doesn't really apply to the rest of their existence, because like none of the other characters really make a big deal of her being a slave. Like, really, they just say like, oh, he better treat you well. Like, but they would tell a teacher that of their apprentice as well, like not a slave. So anyway, I don't know. As it stands, like the power dynamic is kind of screwed up between them, though it's getting better. But it still makes it weird and awkward for me to root for any like romantic interaction that might come of their relationship. But the stuff with Chise discovering how to use magic and like all the history behind it and like finding her own self, that stuff is so good. So I can see why people really love this series for that. And yeah,
I'll interject.
Yeah,
the manga is it's really good.
Yeah.
And like, I think the anime did a good job of interpreting it, but yeah, you can keep going.
Yeah, just to finish up, I would just at this point also give it a 6 out of 10, just because of like all of the if beyond that one issue I have with the show, I would probably give it like some more like an 8 or maybe even a 9 out of 10, because I just think it's that good in its execution, even though it is a little slow paced at this point, I would say. But yeah, it's doing really well, besides those weird power dynamics between Elias and Chise I can't get over. So 6 out of 10.
I'd like to say something, but it may be a potential spoiler. So I can move on to Blood Blockade Battlefront and Beyond. It's an easy 7 out of 10. It's just a fun and wacky adventure with lots of cool battles. It's animated very well. I love the all the attention they give to KK and darn it, what's her name?
Chain Sumeragi.
Chain, sorry, because they didn't get a bunch of attention in the first season, but they got a shit ton second season, which I'm so happy for. Mm-hmm. So like, and it even ends on season 3. So I really want to see some more with this.
Yeah, I guess for me, I just didn't like for this whole series. I haven't really loved like the structure of how the story is told. I guess I just want a more straightforward story with all these cool characters.
Well, that's not what it is.
I know it's just not what it is at all. Like, and I need to accept that. But it's just the problem is that like I love some of the characters. Like I love KK. I really am interested in Leonardo. I love Chain. But like the other characters, I don't care about them too much. I don't know. Some of them are interesting, but like as an ensemble, I'm not really impressed. I don't know. They're fun when they're clicking on all cylinders, but there's just not much for me like to dig my teeth into with this show. So I ended up at just like a 6 out of 10. Like it's a good show. Like, and goddamn Studio Bones has an incredible group of animators and artists.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Like I just want them to work on something that I love as like the source material. And I'll be over the moon about that. But still for this, like, man, it was a cool show. And also it was really cool to just see like this weird alien version of New York City. Since I go to New York City a lot. And so it's fun to see all those landmarks.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Land of the Lustrous, I'll move on to the last show. So the only thing keeping this show from being a 10 for me is that it didn't like completely flesh out the lore of the world, like in a way that I felt was like really satisfying yet. It's like definitely telling you like come back for season 2. I really wanted to just start digging like a little bit deeper and start learning more about the Lunarians and their relation to like the other human evolved groups that exist. But besides that, the show was like stunningly gorgeous at all times. And I think it's the show we'll look back on and say that like, hey, it was possible to make a CGI TV anime that was more than just a joke. And I know there must be some Berserk fans who watched this show that are just absolutely furious that something like Land of the Lustrous and its quality can exist. And they see what they got with Berserk 2016 and Berserk 2017 instead.
Oh, God.
And they just must
so
be
bad.
Friggin' furious. So, yeah, for me, it's a 9 out of 10. I loved it.
Yeah, now I wouldn't blame the Berserk fans for that. But I am going to give it an 8 out of 10. Just like BCom Sin said, it's some of the best CGI I have seen yet in anime, by far. Also, the character development of Foss throughout the show is some of the best character development I have ever seen.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. I'm looking way forward to a season 2. But Alex is the best girl. So
I love Foss so much.
Yeah. Foss is great too. Like how much she's changed from episode 1 and 2 and 3 to episode 12 is just insane. I love like the writing is really good.
Yeah.
Really, really, really good. So
for sure. All right. So that's it. That's our 10 anime that we watched in fall 2017. I think we watched a couple outside of that, but nothing. I haven't finished much outside of the shows that we watched, actually. The only thing I really finished was Food Wars Season 3, which was more Food Wars. It was pretty fun, I would say.
I'm still caught up with Dragon Ball Z.
Or Super.
Yeah, Super, sorry. It's a tournament arc. It's cool.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that. Yeah.
Goku has a new power, of course.
Good for him.
There's 2 others. Garo's Vanishing Line, which actually is decent, and I may actually pick up next season.
Oh, cool.
So we will see.
Interesting.
And then there's also, I've been watching Black Clover because I hate myself and I drink whiskey when I watch that fucking show.
Why do you watch it? Why?
I don't know.
Do you wear earplugs inside of your headphones when you watch it?
Oh, God. I apparently like to torture myself. I don't know. The voice acting is just god awful. But anyways, that's it.
To be honest, I can't ask you why you watch those shows because I like continued to watch
I think I
Little Sisters All You because, Need.
Yeah, I think I watched them. Oh, I've been caught up on that also. I think I watched them because I was waiting on you to catch up on the documents.
Oh, so yeah, for sure.
I want to watch something, so I'm going to watch maybe something I would have watched otherwise. And I'm watching and I'm like, why do I hate myself?
Yeah. So anyway, looking forward to this new year of anime. I don't know, we've been talking about, we may do a anime of the year show with some special guests in the next couple of weeks, possibly. We're putting that together. So that will be fun. It'll probably be more of a goofy show with maybe like a couple serious categories, but a lot of goofy ones. So look forward to that. But beyond that, we'll probably be a couple weeks to our first impressions episode of the winter 2018 season. Some good shows already that I've seen, so it's promising, but a lot of bad ones as well.
I haven't seen anything yet, so we'll see.
But beyond that, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to us all year. We basically finished our first full year of anime podcasts, which, looking back on it, I don't know if we would ever have gotten this far. So it's pretty cool that we did. I feel good about that.
I feel like we're going strong.
Yeah, we're going strong, and we've gained some new listeners, and we've started collaborating with some other podcasts recently. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention, so last episode I mentioned I recorded this Star Wars podcast, but I never said like where it was uploaded. So it should be on Trash Pandas Watch Anime Brains' SoundCloud. If not there, then on his podcast feed. So it should be up by now, by the time you listen to this. So yeah, see, I'm a noob at this collab thing. So it's so weird to me. But thank you for listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on new podcasts and videos. And you can follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and Other for other updates as well. With all that, see you in the new year. Peace.
All right. Later, everybody.